Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1249 of the War News Stream. And today we've seen that Iranian forces have been attacked by armed groups in southern Iran. Also, Ukraine's destroyed yet even more Russian military sites, and the U.S. officials are now officially intervening in Thailand and Cambodia as the war escalates dramatically. It's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world as we've been able to hear that an unknown armed group has conducted an uprising within the Balochistan region of the Islamic Republic of Iran and has stricken at the key city of Zahedan, one of the larger cities within the southeastern region of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we have been able to confirm that officers of the Iranian government have been killed in the course of the strike, and it appears that this group is heavily armed, boasting artillery, heavy machine gun fire, shoulder-launched anti-tank weaponry, and a great deal of other equipment and resources at their disposal to be able to wage direct conflict with the Islamic Republic of Iran into the foreseeable future. At this moment, we have not been able to hear of this uprising being quelled or stopped by the Islamic Republic of Iran's government, and for this reason, officially as of right now on air, this is an ongoing armed rebellion against the Iranian government. Meanwhile, we have also been able to get significant news out of the area of the Cambodian-Thai War, or as it's been called on this channel, the 7-Eleven War, as we've been able to hear that the Thai forces are once again rapidly mobilizing more forces throughout the country that are rapidly moving towards the northeastern border regions of the conflict. We have been able to hear that Thai forces were able to make advances today near to the area of the temple, the Preah Vihar temple, and we have been able to see that the Thai army has been able to raise the standard of the Royal Thai Armed Forces over the dominant mountains and hillsides around this region of the temple. We have also been able to confirm that Royal Cambodian Armed Forces were the ones responsible for the shelling that occurred inside of Laos, and that shelling not only occurred yesterday, but has also occurred once again today, as we do have video and picture evidence to confirm that significant damage was caused to civilian areas inside of the nation of Laos, as it appears that the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces are mistaking Laotian villages for those of Thailand and are continuing to fire onto them even at this very day. We have also been able to hear that the Thai government and the Cambodians have made it incredibly clear that they are not seeking an end to the conflict at the moment, although the Cambodians did, for a brief moment, request a ceasefire. It does appear that both sides are still absolutely gung-ho to keeping this war going, as we were able to hear that the Cambodians have started a new offensive very recently, almost right before we started our stream tonight. We have also been able to hear that the United States of America has now gotten involved in the situation and is demanding that both sides come to a ceasefire arrangement, otherwise we will equally sanction and tariff them at simultaneously. Largely meaning that the United States is, although we have a defensive alliance with Thailand, is not siding with the Thai nor the Cambodians and is actually threatening them both equally to stop the conflict. It appears that it's had absolutely no impact at the moment between the two sides and their conflict that we're currently seeing, and it appears that both sides are still adamant in keeping the armed conflict going, hell or high water. Outside of that, we've also been able to hear that Chinese aircraft were once again spotted across the median line in the Strait of Taiwan earlier today, as the United States of America is also conducting a significant naval exercise around the area of the East China and Philippine Sea. We have also been able to hear of major developments inside of Eastern Europe, as we were able to hear that Ukrainian armed forces conducted another significant drone strike against the area of the Stavropol Oblast, while also Ukrainian-led partisans conducted an attack against an airbase inside of Krasnodar Krai, leading to the loss of another significant Russian Su-27. The Russians have also found another Ukrainian jet-based drone that appears to have crashed on the way to its target, which appears to be new in origin. We have never actually seen a drone like this before, and it appears to be a new Ukrainian drone that was either being tested or is being implemented at this very moment in the Ukrainian drone forces. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been able to hold off Russian attacks throughout most of the front line today, and the Russian Federation has once again taken fairly decent casualties. The Federal Republic of Germany did confirm that they've already sent 3 Patriot interceptors to the state of Ukraine, actually Patriot batteries to the state of Ukraine, while we are also hearing that the European Union for now is actually suspending $1.7 billion worth of financial military aid to the state of Ukraine due to alleged or at least perceived corruption due to the bill that was passed by the Ukrainian Rada and signed by the president of Ukraine several days ago that brought 2 key independent anti-corruption bureaus under the control of the Prosecutor General's office. We have significant news coming from quite literally every single corner of the world at this moment, and we are going to be making sure to get y'all through each and every single piece of major news that is coming out around the globe right now. And moving us on into some of the most major news of the day, at least the most rapidly developing news that we've been able to hear of, this is going to be taking us into the Middle East, and most specifically on down into the eastern region of Iran and the Baluchistan Oblast, or the Baluchistan province. Sorry everyone, I've got Eastern Europe on my mind right there, but the Baluchistan province of the Islamic Republic of Iran. There is actually an interesting fact that Pakistan and Iran both have a province that is called Baluchistan, but they are both different in their geographical parameters, with of course the Iranian Baluchistan falling within the southeastern region of Iran, and the Pakistani Baluchistan falling within the southwestern region of their country. The culture in both of these regions is the same. It is the Baluchistani people, which largely exercise different cultural and religious beliefs than the majority governments of Pakistan and Iran, and for this reason, we usually see that there's a decent amount of disdain for the ruling governments within these regions, either in Pakistan or Iran, and it appears that these tensions may have boiled over today, as we were able to confirm that an armed uprising of a significant scale has now occurred, and videos of intense clashes are coming out of the area of the judiciary of Sistan in Baluchistan. Really quickly to show y'all where Sistan is, and I'll just make sure to pull it up here really quickly. This is actually where the town of Sistan is. Well, actually, really quickly, let me make sure that's in Baluchistan, because it doesn't appear that they're showing us one that is in Baluchistan at this moment. The judiciary, I believe this actually would be within the city that we had labeled earlier, because it is certainly not along the Caspian coast. That is not where the Baluchistani people are from. But nevertheless, we were able to get video and picture evidence confirming the armed clashes that were occurring in the area, which we could see right here.
Isn't it wild how the people in the streets are not even fazed by this at all? It's almost like it's just a usual day here, even though this is really abnormal even for Iran. It's just weird how the teenagers are in the streets, are just kind of hanging out, they're just kind of watching it, and it's not much panic at all. It's just kind of like, oh, whatever.
It really is incredibly bizarre, to say the least, how a lot of people are reacting to this, because from what we generally know, all of this is coming from the area of the city of Zahedan, which is one of the largest cities in southeastern Iran that we can see, at least at the moment. We have been trying to look around for any other equally large cities, and to be entirely honest with you all, it appears that Zahedan is actually the largest one in the area, even larger than Chabahar, which generally is a fairly significant port town for the Islamic Republic of Iran that is not in the chokehold of the Gulf of Oman. It appears that from all the video and picture evidence that we were able to get, fighting has broken out pretty much through most of the city's streets by this armed group, and we've also been able to hear reports that they are apparently heavily armed and not a lightly armed uprising at a minimum. We were able to hear of this armed uprising a little bit further in this footage as well, showing the first clashes between the Cuds and this unknown rebel force that has literally risen up practically within an hour, and we can see once again the heavy firefights occurring here in this clip. These are actually the attackers, from what we understand. And we can see that there is a lot of them. Like an insanely large amount of them. Actually, this crowd of people that almost looks like bystanders are actually all rebels carrying firearms with them as they're attacking what appears to be the central municipal complex of the city in Zahedan, or the municipal courthouse. We also were able to see, or more so here, that heavy mortar attacks are also being carried out, with the clashes, explosion, and heavy gunfire being heard as the battles continue to rage through the city. This is starting to make it more clear that this is not your average armed uprising that you would see in some place like the Caucasus Mountain regions of the Russian Federation, or any other armed uprising that you would see elsewhere, which usually consists of rifles and small arms only. It appears that this group actually has some sort of heavier ordnance or heavier firepower behind them, possibly even using 81mm mortars or any other sort of a similar mortar system to be able to provide fire support for their attacking forces in the city. For this reason, we are believing, due to the amount of forces seen on film and also the reports of heavy mortar fire, that this group is actually incredibly well armed and supplied and may still be in active clashes for the control of the city of Zahedan at the moment. We have not been able to hear any official Iranian statements about the condition inside Zahedan, which is once again further confirmation that there are ongoing battles, either losing the city or the rebels are taking control of the city, one or the other, because if the Iranians have not made a comment that this rebellion has been put down, you can be assured that the rebellion is actually still going with the same kind of fervor and intensity that we saw in the clips from just a few hours ago. This is also making it quite clear that the Islamic Republic of Iran's grip on its outer peripheries in the country is, of course, weak, and it does appear that the central government, while having a great deal of control over the core of Iran at Tehran, Tabriz, Isfahan, Khurramabad, Sandajaj, and Kermanshah, as well as Shiraz, it appears that their control further east in places like Zahedan, or more so in the more fringe areas of the country where it's harder to exert centralized government control, is fairly weak, and there also appears to be a decent amount of dissent against the Iranian government, including this significant armed uprising that is being conducted today. A lot of people have been talking about the heavy gunfights that were occurring in the city of Zahedan, and what they are generally going to be meaning for the Islamic Republic at large, and the internal political situation that already appears to be fairly fragile inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so now that we've seen the footage there of the armed groups attacking Iranian forces today in southern Iran, specifically attacking a judicial building in the middle of the city where they were attacking, we've also seen the heavy gunfights as well, and these were very heavy attacks. This was not just some random, like, a ragtag group of people. There were heavy rocket fire. There was all kinds of stuff going on. Loud explosions being heard, and it was for a pretty prolonged period of time that this battle was taking place. So it was definitely premeditated from the looks of it, but 60% said it sounds like a brewing uprising in southern southern Iran, while 17% said it seems ominous, but only time's going to tell, and 15% said it seems like an isolated attack that probably won't spread. And just based on the level of the attack and how serious it was, in my opinion, it seems like a brewing uprising that's just getting the very early stages, and it probably will get worse from here. And we're not even sure if they've even dispersed yet. We're not even really getting an update about the situation. So we expect to hear something more about it tomorrow to see if maybe they've dispersed or maybe they're going to regroup and come back. But whatever the case is, this is a very serious event nonetheless, because we haven't seen an uprising quite like this in Iran in a very long time, actually. This is a pretty serious one. But Enforcer, what say you?
We saw some sort of an attempted uprising possibly 2 years ago, but there was no actual video or picture evidence confirming extremely heavy gunfights like the ones we saw in the city of Zahedan. So we're generally believing that this is the first of its kind, at least in our news coverage, that we've seen inside the Islamic Republic of Iran, with this kind of a scale of an uprising being conducted. I would have to say that even if this remained around the Zahedan city area or within the Iranian Baluchistan province, it's highly likely that this is going to start becoming a heavy armed uprising or rebellion that is going to take a lot of time, resources, and energy for the Islamic Republic to be able to put down. If they do not put this down quickly or swiftly and generally brutally, this is going to lead a lot of the Baluchi or Baluchistani people to believe that an uprising actually has a chance of succeeding, and this may lead others to join the cause of these rebels and further grow and bolster their support, their manpower, and their forces to be an even more significant threat to the Iranian government, making the situation even worse if the Iranians treat this as a minor incident. For this reason, I have a feeling that this is going to be most likely leading to some pretty bad trouble brewing up within the area, and even if they go and try and rapidly put down this uprising in Zahedan, that may also have the counter effect. It may also lead a lot of people to believe that the Iranian government is, of course, a brutal, bloody regime that rules with an iron fist, and for that reason, other people may join their cause in quiet, and this may grow the further seeds of rebellion within this region, as multiples of the Baluchistani people may no longer see a leadership under the Islamic Republic of Iran to be suitable to their interests or to the safety of people that are a part of their cultural or ethnic group. So it is something to note. This is probably going to become a fairly larger issue as we continue to watch the weeks pass, and it may also start to further destabilize the Islamic Republic of Iran, especially if this uprising ever appears to even have an inkling of success or an ability to actually win out against the Iranians, even if they don't. If it takes a long time for the Iranians to put this uprising down, it may inspire others to believe that they actually have a chance of conducting an uprising and succeeding against the Iranian government, unlike the Baluchistanis if they end up failing.
Oh, also, by the way, for the people asking about who was behind this attack, right now there's nothing 100% concrete certain, but the rumor is the most likely culprit that we're hearing about so far is and once again, I'm going to try to pronounce this as best I can. Apparently, Jaish al-Adal, or if I'm saying that properly, I really can't say it. I'll put it in the chat so we can see what I'm talking about. But one of these groups here have allegedly claimed responsibility for the attack, but there's nothing concrete about that. So right now, it's a bit of a toss up. That's why we're not really naming the group with a concrete certainty, because there's just not a lot of corroborating information about it. But I'll put that in the chat right here so you can see which group I'm talking about.
And of course, we will have to see how this generally develops. Once again, we don't even know the name of the uprising rebel group at the moment, but it does appear to be a fairly heavy clash that is going on in Zahedan at the moment inside of Iran, and this may end up devolving into a very bad situation for the Islamic Republic of Iran, but only time will tell how severe or how minor this is, but we can confirm, without a shadow of a doubt, that there is clearly an armed uprising happening in Zahedan at the moment right now. Moving on out of the Islamic Republic of Iran and further on over and into Thailand, we have also been able to get some major news from the 7-Eleven war over the course of the past 24 hours. It does appear that the 7-Eleven war is continuing to intensify. And not only that, actual ground operations are now being conducted by the Thai and the Cambodians in offensives against each other. And it appears quite clear, at least at this point, that there is probably going to be no cessation in hostilities, at least for the foreseeable future, if we were to take the rapid tempo of war to be any sort of a good indicator. And based off of the fact that this is continuing to escalate and it's not de-escalating at any point, we have a feeling that this is going to be probably around for a good bit. But getting us on into the major governmental statements of both sides today, we were able to hear that according to the Thai government, or more so the Thai Inquirer, that all branches of the Thai military, land, air, and maritime forces are actively engaged in operations amidst the ongoing conflict with Cambodia. It does appear that the Thai forces have pretty much entered a state of total war against the Cambodians, although we cannot clearly state or tell if the Thai army is the Thai Navy is conducting a full blockade of Cambodia. It doesn't appear that that's happened yet, but we can confirm that the Thai Air Force and Army are working overtime against Cambodian forces along the border as they continue to strike them with airstrikes and artillery, and not only that, have started to conduct a limited ground defenses across the border in the past few hours. We also were able to hear the first Cambodian fatality report to come out yet, as the Cambodians, through the Khmer Times, the Khaosat, and the Morning News 13 TV, and Tyros TV, all reported that a total of 34 people had been killed and 164 injured on, from what we generally understand, the Cambodian side. So this does appear to be at least our first casualty report from the Cambodians, which is suggesting that they have taken casualties and fatalities in general, but it appears to be a smaller number than what the Thai were insisting, with the Thai stating that they had already killed around 100 Cambodian service members within the opening 24 hours of the conflict. We have also been able to see that the Thai Air Force is now operating in full swing within the border regions, as we were able to see two Thai Grippens flying in close formation somewhere within the northeastern border regions in this clip right here. Little interesting.
Isn't that the first actual war engagement for the Gripen? I don't think it's ever actually been used in a real life war.
Yeah, actually this is the first combat engagement that a Gripen will ever be involved in its entire lifespan.
Interesting. So the first place it'll actually be used is not Europe, which is weird. It's going to be most likely here in Asia. That's a very odd change of events.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be used in Asia, that's for sure, because we have been able to hear the Gripens are apparently involved in some limited air operations within northeastern Thailand. So as far as actually being involved in an active war, this is actually the first time a Gripen aircraft has flown in a country that is involved in an active war at the moment. So actually history in the making, at least for the Gripen aircraft. And depending on how the Gripen is able to perform, considering that this will most likely be in an air-to-ground strike capacity, this may help the Saab company to be able to boost their pretty small foreign market sales by marketing the Gripen as a cheap, versatile, and not only that, competent, modern fourth-generation aircraft that can fill up the air forces of countries that may not have the budget for, say, a top-of-the-line American or European aircraft like the Eurofighter Typhoon or an F-16 of some kind. We also were able to hear that Thai forces, supported by the Air Force and artillery of the Royal Thai Army, were able to make advances today around the area of the Preah Vihar Temple region. We were able to hear that heavy fighting had been ongoing for several hours, at least within this area, over the course of the night, but as the morning arrived, the flag of Thailand actually was flying over the Cambodian side of the border on the prominent heights within this area, as pictures were being taken by Thai soldiers showing some of the carnage from the airstrikes and the heavy fighting that had occurred in this area, as well as the Thai flag clearly flying over the summit, which is on the Cambodian side of the border. This means at the moment we are able to confirm from these pictures, this one right here as well as this one, that Royal Thai forces have been able to advance into Cambodia in a limited area and have actually been able to take the territory near to the Preah Vihar Temple. This means the Cambodian forces are already on the retreat, generally at least within this area, as it does appear that Royal Cambodian Army forces, which are incredibly limited in their actual doctrinal abilities and also very limited, at least in the terms of available firepower in reserve to support their positions, were overrun by more well-trained and more heavily supported Thai army forces, which were able to push them back and take these prominent heights around the area of the Preah Vihar Temple. It also appears that we were able to get a little bit more additional information about this as well, as Thailand claimed that it had recaptured 90% of the Phu Ma Kua on the Ubon Ratchathani border and raised the Thai Thai flag. The Second Army area warns Cambodia is preparing a counterattack with heavy use of mortars and artillery. Whoever controls the Phu Ma Kua can monitor movements along a wide portion of the border and establish forward artillery positions. These are prominent heights, after all, within this area, and you generally would be able to see pretty much as far south as Kam Nang, Kang Nang, or even as far south as the city of Sraim, which allows for a major highway which travels to the village of Ang Krong, which is right next to the Preah Vihear Temple. This generally means that the Thai army forces do have a decent zone of control, at least within this northeastern region of Cambodia, and most likely will be able to have a commanding position, which will be very hard to be uprooted from in the upcoming days and weeks as this war continues to grind on. We also have been able to hear, in the meantime, that Cambodian forces did attempt to respond by firing artillery at Thai positions in the Ubon Ratchathani region, as well as Sisaket, but appear to have fallen a little off course. They actually ended up shelling the Laotians not just yesterday, but also today, with video evidence now coming out of the damage being caused by Cambodian shellings on the Laotians, which we can see in this clip right here.
That's some pretty bad hits too. That's not a minor incident.
No, this is not really a minor incident at all. We haven't been able to hear of an official apology, at least at the moment, and we have been able to see that apparently there has been a lot of back and forth today about the Thai and the Cambodians trying to speak about the situation, at least within this area, and the Thai are actually stating this appears to have been some sort of a deliberate attempt by the Cambodians to create a false flag attack to try and draw the Laotians into the conflict against Thailand in support of Cambodia. This appears to have been quite clearly a poor attempt, because it does not seem reasonable at all to even claim that the Royal Thai Army would be able to fire into Laos, considering that Laos is actually to the east of all of the front lines, and all Thai firepower is being directed directly south. And considering that Laos's borders quite literally end where Thailand's ends with Cambodia, the only force that could have fired into Laos would be the Cambodians, considering that they are firing northwards towards the Thai. It also appears that based off of everything else as well, the Thai government has made it incredibly clear that neither the barrages of yesterday nor today were conducted by Royal Thai Army forces, and they appear to be conducted by the Royal Army of Cambodia instead, clearly suggesting that either the Cambodians are dialing in completely incorrect fire orders, or they are deliberately firing into Laos and attempting to try and make it look like the Thai are actually firing into Laos. Nevertheless, a lot of people have been talking about this major diplomatic incident today, as it now appears that this somewhat minor cross-border fire incident, which usually diplomatically doesn't turn into much, may actually have been an attempted false flag, which may add a great deal of additional scandal to the situation that we're hearing about at the moment. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so Thailand is openly claiming now that Cambodia launched artillery into Laos on purpose and did what we saw right there in the video, hitting obviously civilian areas, to create a false flag situation where Thailand would be blamed for these strikes and Cambodia would draw other countries into this fight. So 55% said it sounds likely that it was intentional, while 14% said it sounds unlikely and it probably was accidental, and 16% said it's a 50-50 chance that it could be either one. And I would say that it does seem a little bit weird that Cambodia happened to accidentally shell a really very populated civilian area and then just merely claimed it was just an accident. That sounds a little bit fishy, but there's really nothing concrete that we can point to say that it was indeed a false flag attack, because I'm not sure really how powerful Laos's military is. So is it even really that big of a benefit for Laos to be dragged into the conflict against Thailand? Because it sounds like, at least based on common sense, that Laos probably isn't a very large military power. So we'd have to do some research on that, maybe explore that a little bit more, but I would tend to believe it's a 50-50 chance. Maybe Cambodia was stupid enough to think that Laos would get drawn into the conflict, but also at the same time, nothing concrete about it. But Enforcer, what say you?
You wouldn't want them on your side. I can promise you that. I just went and looked. You would not want the Laotians on your side. Would you like to take a guess at what their annual military budget is off the top of your head? Take a good guess.
50 mil.
18 million.
Oh, well, I was pretty close. 18 million, that buys barely one really good missile, I think.
Let's see. Their annual military budget is about the equivalent of 5 U.S. M1 Abrams main battle tanks a year. So pretty cheap. let's
But for
see.
Cambodia, though, with Cambodia having nothing, that's like a gold mine.
I mean, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, like relatively, I guess, like maybe. But oh my God, Leo, like I'm looking at their equipment. I don't really think these people. I don't. Well, hold up. Oh my God, wow, they actually do have like some air defense, but it's all once again almost man-pad or self-propelled anti-aircraft gun-based air defense. I've got to tell y'all, folks, Southeast Asia is a trip because you look at some of it, it really is quite truly a museum. Like, look at this. They have 20 real-life Katyushas in service. They actually have like 20 of these in service, and these were used by the Soviets in World War II against the Germans. Like that's a little wild, It's a literal living museum down here in Southeast Asia. They also have some Akitzias. They also have some PCL 09s. And then they also have, like just random odds and ends stuff that they captured from the U.S. after the collapse of South Vietnamese forces or the ARVN in Vietnam. So also,
So in other words, this is the dollar store military. Like Laos would not be an advantage to anybody to have on their side. They'd be pretty much just scrapping for scraps basically. Like that wouldn't be a big help at all, really.
I mean, there is one thing though that actually is a little bit shocking. Unlike Cambodia, Laos actually has 50 T-72s, which are actually a pretty heavy step above a T-55. So that is actually a little bit interesting. They actually have better tanks in very small numbers than the Cambodians, at least in the T-72s. But beyond that, they don't really have anything. They have some PT-76s. These are obsolete. These were put into service in the 50s, and also some T-55s, which also are obsolete. So in general terms, the Laotians are not really anyone you would want on your side. It also appears that the T-55s that they got aren't even fresh T-55s. They're actually leasers that they got from the Hungarian People's Republic back when they existed. And since the Hungarian People's Republic, as you all know, ceased to exist and it's now just the Republic of Hungary, it never was returned. So yeah, so that's actually how they have some T-55s apparently. I have to look into that a little bit more, but I don't think these people are going to be that big of a help to the Cambodians, to be entirely honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're going to be pretty much nothing. Honestly, like seeing how poor equipped the Laotian military is, it really sort of hurts the credibility of the Thailand claim that Cambodia was trying to drag them in because, Laos isn't going to be that big of a help. And also, there's no guarantee that Laos was going to get involved just because there was an accidental shelling. There was no guarantee of that either. So, the Cambodians haven't been making very wise decisions so far. So it is possible that maybe they're so poorly trained and so panicked that maybe they did accidentally do something this egregious. But, I would still say it's a 50-50 chance.
They also don't have any combat aircraft. They have a Jianma 600. They also have an Antonov 26, and then they have some helicopters. Like it's literally like Laos is like a mirror of Cambodia almost. I would have to say though that with that in mind, it's really hard to say whether it's intentional or not because on the one hand, Cambodia is, as far as the government and army is concerned, pretty stupid, and they've been doing a lot of stupid stuff over just the past 3 days, really heading into 4. So it's not out of the question that they would false flag the Laotians to try and get them involved. But at the same time, y'all have seen the videos of the Cambodians in action, like this one. If y'all remember this one. Where Ankh is firing the RPK and it's jamming like every other shot. And so it's not really out of the question to say it may also just be due to completely incompetent training that they are misinterpreting some sort of fire order where they're supposed to be firing into Ubon Ratchathani and they're firing into Laos instead. That's also not really out of the picture. So I generally have to say I'm a little bit undecided on this one. I'm actually going to have to take the cop out with the 14% and say I'm unsure and undecided because it could be that they're trying to false flag the Laotians to get them involved because, I guess like two half-ass armies makes a halfway competent army. Maybe that's what they're thinking, or it may just be due to a complete lack of training. It's really hard to tell on which. But
I guess the best case scenario is the Laotians could serve as a distraction to distract Thailand to a different front, which would be obviously to their eastern front. But even at that, it's still very light. Even at that, because the Laotians aren't a huge threat, and also their military is completely lousy. So kind of matches up.
Man, the whole Laotian army has the budget of a Laos.
Honestly.
Dude, crazy stuff. But outside of that, I hope that addresses that the best we can, at least that controversy from today. But in the meantime, we have also been able to hear that the Cambodians have closed their airspace along the border. This is more so of a symbolic thing, at least at the moment, because they have no way to enforce an airspace closure. Technically, they don't have an air force, and they really don't have any air defense forces on the ground either. So this is more so of a symbolic closing of the airspace, more than one that actually can be enforced. We also were able to confirm that they are mobilizing the T-55s to head to the front. So they are whipping out, in Cambodian terms, Le Fine China. So, and you know what, that's kind of crazy, because these actually were provided to them by the Chinese. So this is really the Fine China here. But anyways, here's the clip.
Look at this. Antiques. It's like a museum in real time. Look at that. Look at that thing firing up without smoke, man. These things are so old, it's like chuffing.
Dude, the filter on that thing has not been replaced since the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, probably. That is, oh. Bruh, dude, they're not even running tanks. They're running steam trains out here.
I think they're actually trying to brush them up on the training, actually, like on how to operate these real quick, because it seems like when I watched this video earlier that they were trying to give them a crash course, at least from what I could tell, because they don't seem to really know what they're doing.
They don't really seem to know what they're doing, and I'd also like for all of y'all to note that everyone who's in the Cambodian army appears to not really be wearing a uniform. Like, this just looks like a random group of people out here, and like even the people who are marshaling the tank around are just in random clothes. I'm going to be honest with y'all, folks. I think the Cambodians are truly cooked.
Yeah, you would think they're cooked. Yeah, it seems pretty lousy.
Matthew, we can't use that joke because they're Cambodians. We can only say that for
It's
the
still
Laos.
lousy.
It's still lousy. But anyways, outside of that, we also were able to hear, at least from the area of Buriram, there were more BTRs heading to the front, which we can see in this clip here. We could also see, at least within the area of the city of Krong Poi Phet, that there was also a significant Thai armor buildup here as well, where there was a decent amount of Patton main battle tanks spotted near to the Poi Phet border checkpoint, right on the Cambodian side. So it does appear that at the moment, there is a significant buildup by Thai army forces pretty much along the entirety of the border, as the Cambodians keep doing what they're doing, as well as the Thai also doing what they're doing. And then out of this all, we have something amazing. The President of the United States has arrived, everyone. You wouldn't believe it. Every time there's a war going on and there's the sight of a possible Nobel Peace Prize, you can always guarantee that the U.S. will be there on the spot, brokering an immediate, unconditional ceasefire. Will it work? No, but will we force it? Probably. We were able to hear that the President of the United States has practically threatened both countries with trade consequences, and they will have to reach a ceasefire immediately. We have also been able to hear a direct statement from the President himself, which I'll read out to all of y'all right here. I just had a very good call with the Prime Minister of Cambodia and informed him of my discussions with Thailand and its acting Prime Minister. Both parties are looking for an immediate ceasefire and peace. They are also looking to get back to the trading table with the United States, which we think is appropriate to do until such time as the fighting stops. They have agreed to immediately meet and quickly work out a ceasefire and ultimately peace. It was an honor to deal with both countries. They have a long and storied history and culture. They will hopefully get along for many years to come. When all is done and peace is at hand, I look forward to concluding our trading agreements with both. And so we have it. Another Nobel Peace Prize possibly in the making. But a lot of people have been talking about this today, and have been wondering what their 2 cents are, at least, on what this whole involvement from the U.S. side is. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So obviously, we don't get political here on the channel. We may be frustrated. We may have our own opinions about it, but we don't get political. So this poll is worded as neutrally as possible. It says, do you believe a quickly brokered U.S. ceasefire is the right solution in the Thai-Cambodia war? So 40% said yes, it's better than nothing, while 29%, actually 30%, said no, it's just weak, lazy diplomacy, and 23% said the U.S. should stay out completely and mind their own business in this particular conflict. And this one is a bit tricky because obviously on its face, it looks like a ceasefire would be a good deal because obviously we'd want the fighting to stop. That makes sense. But the problem is, though, this one-size-fits-all strategy that the U.S. is employing pretty much in every emerging conflict in the world has been proven not to work in the majority of cases. It worked in the India-Pakistan situation, but in pretty much every other area of the world, like, for example, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, it has not worked. It's actually done the complete opposite and probably inflamed the situation, probably worse than it was going to be before. So, in my opinion, it seems like another version of weak, lazy diplomacy. Instead of finding a solution that actually punishes the wrongdoer here, we're simply trying to tell both countries, we don't care who is in the right. Both of you knock it off, or we're going to punish you both, which is not a good way to operate. And once again, we're friends with Thailand, the U.S. is. So why we're treating them like this is a little bit odd. It seems like it really is just really lazy. Like we don't bother really trying to research the issue. If we really don't have the energy to research it, we should probably just stay out, which would probably be the best case scenario in my opinion. For now, the U.S. should probably just stay out. Let's see what happens. Let's try not to agitate China since this is their region of the world. And let's see what happens with it first. And then jump in if we are needed. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say that in my opinion, this is one that I'm getting a little bit tired of, to be entirely honest with y'all, because this is a repeat of India, Pakistan, Israel, Iran, and Ukraine and Russia. And in all of these, it has not worked. And also, I know that Matthew said it worked in Pakistan and India, but that's because it's not the fall yet. When the Pakistanis are actually going to start running completely dry in the Indus River, and that's when we're going to see that whole thing comes back to a head because there's no water treaty between India and Pakistan still, and the Indians are still trying to follow along with the not a drop policy for the Pakistanis as far as water resources. So that is a conflict in the making at the moment again, and nothing was fixed. It was more so a pause that was put on for a short amount of time, and the U.S. can't go into every situation and act like there is no one at fault and it has to end. From what we know, the Cambodians did cross the border right near to the area of the Preah Vihear Temple, planted a landmine on a Thai army patrol path, and killed a Thai soldier and wounded a couple of others. That is a violation of sovereignty. And that is also something that is quite significant in most diplomatic books. Let's take that example and put it into America. If the Federal Army of Mexico crossed the Texan border, planted a couple of landmines, and a couple of border guards ended up getting blown up and killed by those landmines, we would consider that to be a serious violation of U.S. sovereignty, which technically it would be. And you could guarantee that there would be a major armed response against the Federal Republic of Mexico because of that situation. The fact that the Thai were able to confirm that that happened undeniably without a doubt, that is showing that the Cambodians are clearly at fault for the conflict, and that the conflict stemmed from Cambodian aggression and violations of internationally recognized borders. For that reason, going into the situation and treating an American-aligned ally, which is the Kingdom of Thailand, as well as the Kingdom of Cambodia, as equally culpable for the war and threatening trade sanctions against the Thai, which are an ally of the United States, for responding to a clear violation of national sovereignty by the Cambodians, is something that is quite annoying to me. If anything, we should be coming in and saying that the Cambodians have to give, in a ceasefire, some form of concessions to the Thai for the blatant violation of their borders that they have conducted. And also equally threatening trade sanctions or consequences to our allies for carrying out the actions that they view necessary for the defense of their own national sovereignty and national security interests is not making us any friends around the world, people. This is making us a lot lot less. Because every single time we go around and we treat Israel just like Iran, every time we treat Ukraine just like Russia, and every time we treat Thailand just like China, or Thailand just like Cambodia, what we are showing a lot of people around the world is that the U.S. is actually going to treat you in a pinch as badly as we are going to treat our actual enemies in a pinch. This doesn't make a lot of sense from a foreign policy standpoint, and not only that, it's showing to me, in my opinion, that the President of the United States, at least from the statement today, is not concerned at all about who's our ally or who truly was responsible for this situation, or actually trying to find a long-term stop to this conflict or a way to smooth everything over. We are simply looking for a way to quickly end these as quickly as we can, so that way we can go, look how quickly we ended this thing. I would like a Nobel Peace Prize, because that's quite clearly what it's boiled down to at this point with our foreign policy approach, because no matter what, there is never an attempt, like of prior administrations, to actually try and seek some sort of a longer lasting ceasefire or a peace by fixing the underlying issues. We do not care what the underlying issues are. We just care that we force a ceasefire as quickly and rapidly as possible, and we'll put pressure on everyone involved in the conflict to try and do that, so that way we can try and line up for a Nobel Peace Prize. And that's not at all how foreign policy is supposed to work. And at this moment, it's quite clear that the Cambodians are acting incredibly aggressively against the Thai. That's why it continues to escalate. If y'all do not recall, the first people who died in this conflict, outside of the Thai soldier that stepped on the mine, were the 2 Thai citizens at that 7-Eleven. That's why it's called the 7-Eleven War here on this channel. Like, we're going to sit here and say the Thai are equally culpable and responsible, and we will equally punish them for protecting the safety of their citizens who were killed by a Cambodian artillery barrage, not only on a 7-Eleven, but also on the Phantom Dong Rock Hospital in Seren, but we are going to treat them both equally. That does not make any sense at all to me. It does not.
Honestly, if I was the president, and this is the way I would approach it, if we don't have the bandwidth right now to deal with the Thailand Cambodia situation, which is totally understandable if we don't, because we're really tied up with Ukraine and Russia, we're tied up with all kinds of other issues, for example, in the Middle East, and obviously we're eyeing the Taiwan situation that's still brewing right now. So it's perfectly acceptable for the U.S. to not jump right headfirst into this situation if we don't want to. It would be totally excusable not to. And also, we're really not needed just yet, because it looks like Thailand has the situation under control. But if we do want to get involved, then we should research and have our experts that are employed by the government do their research and figure out what exactly, for a concrete fact, led to this situation, which side aggressed first, and that side needs to be told to back down and negotiate, or else we need to punish only the side that's in the wrong. That's the proper non-lazy way to do it. But the problem is, though, if you don't have the energy, the bandwidth, or the desire to actually jump headfirst into it, do the proper research, we're just going to do this one-size-fits-all approach, which damages our relationship with our allies, like the enforcer was saying, and we don't want to become known for that, because that damages the credibility of the United States, and I think we're falling into that trap. So I think that ought to back off of that strategy. It's really not a good one, and if we did that, it would probably turn out a lot better.
And also, I don't know if a lot of y'all know this, because I see some people saying wars are not good at all, period. And it's great to be a peace lover and everything and to hug the trees and everything, but what are the Thais supposed to do about the fact that one of their soldiers got killed because the Cambodians crossed the border and planted a landmine on the footpath that those soldiers were using for their patrol that ended up getting killed? Is there supposed to be no justice for that violation of their sovereignty or the death of one of their service members? Is there not supposed to be? Or are we supposed to just act like it is what it is? If that's the case, then the U.S. can't have any response to anything anywhere. If, say the Iranians conduct a terrorist attack in America, well, they may have killed thousands of people, but it's more so better to not have a war, because peace is to be achieved at every single cost possible. As a matter of fact, we should give the Iranians money for killing our people, because we would love to make sure that the peace continues, even if they end up killing a whole bunch of our people in the process. Or where in the world does that end? What is the end to that sort of a mindset or that sort of a logic? Is there nothing to fight for? Can people, like my example previously, so if the Mexicans don't like our position right now on what's going on the southern border, does that mean they can just send the Mexican army across the border, across the Rio Grande, to just start mining the area, and if the border patrols come through, just start wiping them out with anti-tank and anti-personnel landmines? And in the just pursuit of peace, we are to have no response to that sort of a situation, or if, for example, with Russia and Ukraine, when it's incredibly clear that the Russians are the aggressors and that they do not want to stop the war and they're going to keep that thing going hell or high water, we should still force a peace now and pretty much allow for an even worse war to happen later. What is the ends to that kind of a logic? And the truth is that there is no end. That kind of a logic is the same kind of a logic that led into the Second World War. It is the same kind of logic that led into the First World War. It is the same kind of logic, that sort of a concept that peace is to be achieved at every single cost, that has led into every single one of the deadliest and worst conflicts in human history. And the truth is that there is something to fight for. If the Cambodians wanted to violate the sovereignty of the Thai, it is the Thais' responsibility as a government and a nation to respond to that violation of their sovereignty as they see fit. And while we would like to see a ceasefire, we cannot go down and equally threaten the Thai as though they are culpable for this act of aggression conducted by the Cambodians, and the fact that the Cambodians are continuing to conduct these horrific actions and are not only that, going out of their way to target civilians inside of Thailand. The Kingdom of Thailand has a governmental responsibility to the security and safety of its citizens, and if they find that to be what they need to do, that's what they'll do. And I don't think that the United States should be trying to force them unduly to stop a conflict that the Cambodians are clearly not at all looking to end or cease at this point. That is my opinion on it. And some people are not incredibly happy about that. I see some people in the chat saying that, but the issue is, folks, is that peace is something that is great to achieve, but if a peace is not possible, that does not mean that peace has to be achieved by all means. And threatening our allies, who are justly defending themselves against a violation of their national sovereignty, are not at fault for continuing to fight a war that on their end is justified. If that's the case...
And also, it's not political either. Like, I see like a handful of people getting very upset. Now, this is the one problem we have when we get on these topics of the U.S. foreign policy. Sometimes people immediately assume, oh, we're bashing the president personally. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm simply speaking solely of his foreign policy strategy, and that's all we're looking at, because that's something that's objective. We can look at, we can study it, and figure out if it makes sense or not. The numbers and also the experience here, the results do not back up the fact that these quick, lazy, cheap ceasefires, I'm just going to call it that because that's what I believe it is, these do not work. It didn't work with Russia and Ukraine. Look how long that situation dragged out endlessly. Ukraine could have had the weaponry they needed to start a fight back against the Russians before the summer offensive started, but they didn't get it until now because, of course, we were dragging this out while Russia dragged their feet with these ceasefire talks, which had no hope of going anywhere. So it hurt Ukraine doing that. That didn't work, and that was a failure on that front. Then we move down to the Middle East, Iran and Israel. Iran is gearing up once again to go back and attack Israel in the coming months. So clearly, a ceasefire there is not working. We're going to simply kick the can down the road, and then a couple months later, we'll be right back to the same situation we were. So it may have stopped the fighting. Yes, the people that say, we want to stop the killing, we want to stop the fighting. That's a great thing in practice, but in reality, though, what you're really doing is you're delaying the killing and the fighting. That's all you're doing. And then it's going to be worse the next time it starts up, because now they've had a chance to regroup, rebuild, and resupply themselves, and then it's going to be worse the next time. So I think it's pretty straightforward, personally. And the results speak for themselves. It's not me making it up. We see it in reality.
Peace at any cost is something that you can just look at World War II to get an example of it not working. For all the people who say peace must be achieved, killing is terrible, killing in war is a horrendous thing, we must achieve peace at all costs. Look how it went in World War II. Because we had that mindset, or the Europeans had the mindset at that time, at peace at any costs, they allowed the Nazi Germans to build up one of the largest ground armies in Europe from 1932 to 1939, and the entire time the Germans would go, give us Austria or we're going to war. Okay, you can Anschluss Austria. Give us the Sudetenland or we're going to war. Okay, you can have the Sudetenland, given away to them by the Treaty of Munich of 1938. Look, everyone, clearly the Nazi government's already conducting atrocities against the Jews in Germany. That was already clear by that point. And it's incredibly clear that this is a horrendous dictatorship, and it's incredibly clear by the writings of Mein Kampf that they're not stopping in Austria and the Sudetenland. But we'll give it to them now because this is clearly going to stop everything, and peace must be achieved at every single available cost. We can't have another war like the First World War. That would be terrible. And because they had that mindset, they not only ended up having another world war, they ended up having the deadliest world war, because they let the Nazi Germans build up such a significant army the entire time that we were trying to avoid a war. The Germans were building up for the war. They knew that the more time they bought and the more land that they were able to be given and the more concessions that they were able to be given, that gave them more time to get ready to kill as many people as they could. And so in the process of trying to cut down on the amount of lives lost, we ended up resulting in more lives being lost years down the road. And that's the truth of what's going on around the world with these cheap ceasefires. It is not stopping any sort of a conflict. I don't know if anyone's ever getting that. The ceasefire between India and Pakistan, it's just giving them time to start formulating how to kill each other better. Because once the autumn comes around, the Indus is running dry. Completely. There's going to be no water for several 100 million people living in Pakistan. And you know what the Pakistanis are going to do? They're going to start killing Indians in droves. It doesn't even matter if it's the army. They're going to be wiping anyone and everyone out that they can to get up in the Jammu and Kashmir region and clear up those dams and get the water flowing. That war did not stop. It's been put on pause, and it's going to be even worse when it starts back up, because now the Pakistanis have the time and the Indians have the time to really sit back and ponder. You know, put something in their pipe and smoke it on how to kill each other the most. With Israel and Iran, we bombed the Iranians. They're still working towards a nuclear bomb. And now they've been able to see how we attack them, how the Israelis attack them. They're trying to figure out how in the world can we build this nuclear bomb in secret enough that we can throw them off to be able to kill as many of them as we can, because we clearly didn't stop them from developing a nuclear bomb. They're still working towards it. For better instance, with the Russians and the Ukrainians, let's get to talking. Let's try and figure out how to achieve peace at all costs. The Russians have not only made it clear they're trying to eyeball the rest of Ukraine in that sort of a peace, they're also looking at Eastern Europe, and they made that incredibly clear to the point that the U.S. president right now can't even deny that that's the case. It's incredibly clear that trying to achieve peace at any costs is something that does not work. It sounds like a noble venture on paper, but it's going to end up costing far more lives in the long run than achieving a reasonable peace, or a peace through strength would have at any other point. It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible foreign policy ambition and initiative. And you don't have to sit here and talk about it in a domestic political sense and go, oh, why are you attacking the president? He's a great man. It's not even about the president. This is about the foreign policy approach. The foreign policy approach is abysmal. It's terrible. This is a bad idea. This isn't going into the conflict down here with the understanding that the Thai are responding in self-defense, which is what they have a national right to do. That's not even understanding. The understanding is a war just happened. It just appeared. And it has to stop. We don't even care what the problems are. We don't even care that the Thai are operating in self-defense. We don't care that the Cambodians went out of their way to attack and kill civilians over the past few days, which once again even further emboldens the Thai to a right of self-defense. We don't even care. The war just has to stop, and we're going to put a hold on it, but it definitely will be starting later. That's what we're going into with this. And that's why this is a terrible approach. Like, I just got to be honest with y'all. These approaches are better yet. Look at the approach in Syria. Oh, you know what? Let's take Jelani off of the terrorist list with the HTS, and in fact, let's send them back into Sawaida to protect the Druze. And as of yesterday, they're starting to genocide them again. So how good was that? At peace at any costs, to the point that we sent the very Syrian equivalent of the SS to go protect the Jews of Syria. Basic equivalent. And look at how that turned out. There was no peace to be achieved. It collapsed once again in 3 days' time, and they're back to killing the Druze again. And this is what's going to be happening anywhere in the world wherever cheap ceasefires are attempted. And Thailand and Cambodia is going to be another victim of another cheap ceasefire.
Yes, and also I see actually several people agreeing with it, and it's totally fine if you don't agree. Like, I see people that agree, disagree, whatever. Like, have your own opinion about it. This is simply our analysis and our conclusion about it. But some people are saying, okay, you're correct, but what is the solution? And the solution is simply this: put energy and effort into the foreign policy solution, because honestly, in my opinion, the foreign policy right now coming out of the United States it's like 50% effort. It's like half-ass effort. If they put full effort into it, I wonder what would actually get accomplished at that point. Because if they, for example, did some research and studied the Thailand and Cambodia situation, and the president came out tomorrow and said, Okay, let's hypothetically say Thailand is the one that's in the right and Cambodia is in the wrong. And he came out and said, Cambodia, we want a peace, but you have to either make reparations or some type of punishment. You're going to get punished in some way or another for aggressing against Thailand, and we're going to resolve the situation under that premise. If that was the case, that would be a good approach. But at the same time, though, that does carry a risk. It has the risk of potentially inflaming the situation, which, of course, would be politically bad for the sitting president. But at the same time, though, that is the only real way to get to the bottom of the situation and have a real long-lasting peace, as Zelenskyy would like to call it in Ukraine. But this is in Thailand, of course. That's the only way to actually achieve that. But that requires effort. And right now, we're not really seeing any signs of real effort being put toward it. So it's, once again, it's not even bashing the president. It's just simply asking and requesting that real effort be put into the situation if you're even going to jump into it in the first place.
But here's the thing. Sometimes, folks, there is no solution to a war. That you can't force a peace sometimes. Really, the truth is that war, and this is an age-old quote, war is the side effect of failed diplomacy. And once that Thai soldier got blown up, if America really cared about stopping a war, they should have immediately had the Department of State on this once that Thai soldier got blown up to try and rectify the diplomatic fallout and the inevitable war that was coming out of this failed diplomacy between the two parties to try and see if they could smooth it over then. Instead, we completely ignored it, and as a result of that, and as a result of the Thai and Cambodian actions, which the Thai are completely justified to self-defense, they then went to war. And now we're trying to step in and go, oh, now it all has to stop. And the truth is, folks, is that we could try to make it stop. We could go, can y'all talk about a possible ceasefire? And then if they went to the ceasefire table and said, we can't talk it out, we're going to kill each other, then you just have to say, okay, well, like, we'll be here, as a neutral third-party mediator if you want to talk. Or we could sit there and say something like, okay, well, clearly y'all aren't going to find any conclusion. We have to let you know we diplomatically support the Thai, but we will be a neutral third-party mediator to try and end this thing if possible. That's also the only other approach that can be taken, because I don't know why people have this mindset that the president is supposed to be this magical fixer that can just travel around the world and end the war with the swish of a wand. That's just not how diplomacy works. If these people want to kill each other, they're going to kill each other. There's not really a lot that we can do about that. The only thing that we're doing,
if he really wants the Nobel Peace Prize, if that's what he's looking for, which I think he stated that he would like it, or at least people around him have stated that he wants it. If he actually got to the bottom of these conflicts and actually put effort into it, that would be like something, in my opinion. I would say, okay, now that is Nobel Peace Prize worthy. Like if he did that, if he went into the situation with Thailand and Cambodia and said, okay, here's who's in the right, here's who's in the wrong, and we're going to have to sort this thing out the right way, or we're not going to be sorting it out at all. And Thailand's going to fight you, Cambodia, and we're going to support them. So you either come right or you don't come at all, basically. If that was the approach, I would say, of course, that does carry risks. It's ballsy. But at the same time, though, that's the only way to get to the bottom of it. And that would be prize-worthy, and at least in my opinion.
Here's the truth of something. I don't know about this particular instance, but I'm going to take an example of something that happened with America and Southeast Asia that is the same case. The Vietnam War and the end of it. As y'all know, at the time, and I'm not speaking politics here, I'm not speaking about whether this person was a good president or not, I'm just speaking about their foreign policy, because as far as their foreign policy went, it wasn't that bad, at least when you look at it from a clinical perspective. When Nixon said the war was going to end in Vietnam, he didn't mean we're going to achieve peace with the North Vietnamese at any cost. He said we're going to go to the Paris Accords and we're going to try and talk it out. And the North Vietnamese would not talk it out. So he said, okay, well, if you're not willing to talk it out, then we'll go to the second option. And we started to bomb the hell out of North Vietnam. That's when Operation Linebacker happened. That's when a lot of people heard about the B-52s pretty much carpet bombing cities like Hanoi, because at that point it was, we are going to achieve a peace, but there is no way to achieve it by forcing our allies, which were the South Vietnamese, to kowtow to the North Vietnamese, which are clearly an enemy of America and South Vietnam. So what we did is that we came in support of the South Vietnamese and pretty much bombed the North Vietnamese into submission. They actually went to the Paris Peace Accords and said, we will peace out of this. And the only point that the North Vietnamese broke that ceasefire was after President Nixon resigned, and then it appeared that the U.S. had completely lost any real interest in supporting South Vietnam, and also the South Vietnamese government had a whole bunch of issues of itself because it was wildly corrupt, and there was a million issues with that. And then they went into pretty much a complete collapse, and the North Vietnamese took advantage of that and then steamrolled them. Still, at least for the United States and our purposes, a ceasefire was successfully achieved where we could generally start to withdraw from the Vietnam War. The thing, however, is that with this one, we're not doing any of that. We're not doing anything to either show support to an ally that we actually have a defensive pact with, which is the Kingdom of Thailand, and we also do not have any real actions to show that we even understand what the conflict started over. Because if we knew what it started over, we would clearly be saying, and the U.S. government, that the Kingdom of Thailand has a right to self-defense. Because it was only through the death of that Thai soldier on pretty much getting blown up by the Cambodians on the Thai side of the border that this entire war started out at all. So, that would be my 2 cents on it. If you agree with me, you do. If you don't, you don't. It's a free country. But generally, these cheap ceasefires are not working. They're terrible. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least at the moment on that situation. And before we move on out of Southeast Asia and on into East Asia and also into Eastern Europe, into Ukraine, I do want to make sure that we get a couple of questions before we move on. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first 3 super chats of the night before we move right back to our news, our first one here goes to Danny B, a channel legend who puts in a very generous $50 donation. And thank you very much, Danny, for that support. It's good to see you once again. And Danny said, hello and good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here. Hello to all the beautiful people of the LSA. Sending love from Colorado. And let's see here. I'm going to reword it slightly, Danny, because it is a little bit political. So I'm going to reword it and ask it anyway. He said, why does the U.S. try to get involved in wars around the world and not go all the way?
That's a good question, Danny B. I can see the way it was originally written. I got to thank you for the massive support, Danny B. And it's a bit of an interesting question. The truth is, I'm going to have to be honest, folks. And sometimes the honest truth isn't the best sounding truth, but the United States of America is trying to pursue the cheapest path in foreign policy possible at the moment. And I don't mean cheap in terms of money. I mean cheap in terms of work effort and approach to every situation. And that's the reason why it's failing. That's probably the best sort of an answer I can give. And of course, because really quickly I have to say this. Of course, whenever we say something like this, people want to go, oh, you're clearly like for now, because the current president, you all know who the current president is. Oh, you're a bleeding heart liberal. And then when we criticized the last president, we were what was it, MAGA Nazis or something. It's literally one or the other. You can't ever just take anything on a neutral stance and analyze it and then say this is not good, because it's not. There's always got to be people out there who make it into a political thing when it's not. It's more so on the efforts of your work or how well things are turning out. And the truth is that it's turning out terribly because we're going for a cheap approach. From what we know, it's because the current administration is seeking a Nobel Peace Prize. That's probably the best explanation we can give. And usually you get a Nobel Peace Prize for very impressive works in diplomacy that achieve some form of a peace of some kind. And the fact that we are going around and literally trying to force a ceasefire down everyone's throats everywhere, that's the only sort of thing I could get out of this, is that we're trying to force some sort of an ability to get a Nobel Peace Prize at this point, even if these pieces are cheap and they don't last, and they end up creating even bloodier and deadlier conflicts in the future. The fact of the matter is that we are just looking for ceasefires to be achieved right now, so that way we can say, look, we achieved a peace, and everything's great now. Everything's honky-dory and everything's fine and everything's great, although a lot of these conflicts end up breaking out in the future. I don't know if y'all all forget this one, because this one's a really big one. Remember that ceasefire that was brokered between Hamas and Israel and how long that lasted? That was less than 3 weeks. And I think everyone completely forgot about that, because that ceasefire was predicated on, okay, Israel, you let the food in, and then Hamas is going to let the hostages out. And then Israel let the food in, and then Hamas didn't let the hostages out. And then it went and started back up all over again, because we were so busy on getting a ceasefire initiated that it never crossed our minds that Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they're going to agree to a ceasefire and double cross us, because it's going to allow them to get a little bit of extra food into the Gaza Strip, which will help them to keep fighting a little bit longer. And they had no intent of ever releasing those hostages. I'm sure a lot of people forgot about that ceasefire, which has been attempted, I believe, twice under the current administration. And I believe a lot of people are forgetting right now about the Syrian ceasefire, which was literally negotiated within this week and has already collapsed. And it already appears that Jelani's men are back to slaughtering the Druze in southern Syria. And it's that kind of approach that's going to end up screwing over the United States in foreign policy, because you
And
can't
and
go.
also and also, man, it's not going to screw the United States over in foreign policy, but also just from and I'm going to address this as neutral as possible. I'm not trying to get partisan here. From a political perspective, the president still has 3 something years in office, I do believe. He's still got 3 something years in office. These temporary cheap ceasefires are not going to hold. It's not going to be a patch for 3+ more years. This is going to get very bad and very ugly with the foreign policy well before the 3 year mark. So it's not even kicking the can down the road to the next president necessarily. It's literally kicking it down the road to the next year of the term. So it's not like you're actually preventing something from happening so that way you can try to avoid political consequences. It's just, I don't understand. Like, it just seems like the easiest thing to do in the moment. So that's the option they took. And they're not even really thinking a year ahead, like even from a political standpoint.
And I saw someone say, you keep repeating the same thing but don't give a different opinion. Well, it's the same opinion. It's a bad idea. Cheap ceasefires are cheap. Like, I don't have to change the opinion on that. That's the opinion. I don't even know what the point of that statement was. Because if a ceasefire is shit, it's shit. Like, I don't have to give a better explanation for it. I can explain the mechanics of why it's shit. And then you're saying, so what's the solution? Sometimes there is no solution. There isn't. I know that's crazy. That blows people's minds. You know, like if say like a plague was coming through the country, sometimes there's no cure. Like, you know, might not be, or there might not be for years. You just kind of got to sit it out and let whatever's going to happen. Like the world isn't magic. There's not a fix and there's not a solution to everything. Like, if you get your leg blown off, your leg is blown off. We might be able to get you an artificial leg, but we're not going to be able to grow your leg back. That's just out of our abilities. And a lot like wars, once a war starts, the genie's out of the bottle. It's impossible or very difficult to start wars, to stop wars prematurely. And with how we're doing these ceasefires, all of these wars are stopping prematurely. The issues, the underlying issues, are never being fixed. They're never being resolved, and neither side is willing to fix that underlying issue because the war has not exhausted them politically or diplomatically enough to actually reach some sort of an amenable resolution with the other warring party. And that means that the war has to keep going until they find a common ground, or until we are able to actually encourage them through very passive means to actually negotiate the underlying issue that caused the war in the first place. This ceasefire in Thailand and Cambodia is not fixing the underlying issue. Where in the world in this approach you must achieve a ceasefire? Is there any understanding that some sort of a redress of grievances must be made by the Cambodians for the violation of Thai sovereignty? There is none. The underlying issue that would lead to a ceasefire is not even being addressed in the ceasefire attempt. It is literally saying, I don't give a shit what y'all's problems were, and I don't care who's even justified. We're just going to have a peace because we're going to have one. That is not a way to approach this sort of a deal. It's similar to saying, look, I don't give a damn, Ukraine, if you were invaded by the Russians and they've killed hundreds of thousands of civilians, and that they are continuing to conduct this illegal invasion, and they are continuing to say that they're going to expand further than Ukraine. You have to achieve a peace at absolutely every measure. It does not matter if
That's
you're
what they
defensive.
said.
Yeah, that's what they said. They literally said that to the Ukrainians for months. And then it finally came clear the Ukrainians were making no ground because the Russians wanted to keep the war going. And that means we can't stop the war. Like, there isn't a magic fix to the war in Ukraine. There isn't a magic fix to any war. If a war is not going to stop, it's not going to stop. There's no way to end it early. There's like this idea that's given out in a movie, like in Hollywood, where you can sit there and a war's going on and you run through the battlefield up to the princess of the enemy country and go, I love you, and then the whole war stops and you get married and it's a happily ever after. That doesn't work in real life. Like, it's fiction. It's made up. That's not how real diplomacy works. That's not how this ever worked in history. You can't do that. And I see a lot of people saying, let's see, if there was peace, there could be diplomacy. Here's the thing, though. You can't force diplomacy, and you can't force a peace. If the Cambodians are saying we're going to kill everyone in Thailand, and Thailand is saying we're going to kill everyone in Cambodia, and then we go, stop! Can't we all just get along? And they both answer, no, there's no way for us to end that right now. We just have to go, okay, well, they're going to go at it. And just wait until they wear themselves down to where they will want to talk. That's the only approach. I'm sorry, y'all. I hate to say that because I know that so many people think that the U.S. is a miracle worker, but we're not a miracle worker. This is the real world. It's nasty. It's ugly. It's not always beautiful. It's not always perfect. But this is the world we live in, and this is the fact of life. You can't end these things. Like if we wanted to end it, here's something crazy. Here's a thought. Maybe the Department of State or the president, either one, should be paying attention to when that Thai soldier got blown up, so that way before the war started 3 days later, we could have gotten involved to try and mediate that entire situation to where it didn't turn into a war. Maybe that would have been a smart idea. Because that really was the only way that you could actually have diplomacy, because there was peace then. The guy got killed, and 3 days passed, and we didn't do nothing until the war started, and now we want to get involved and stop it. The truth is that you have to stop them before they happen, because once they break out and they start happening, there's no way to stop this thing. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from what I would know. And, that's based off of all my historical knowledge and understanding of how foreign policy and diplomacy works. And that's the real way to work it, not just trying to force a ceasefire at all costs, because that never works. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support, Danny B, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on into the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Live Laugh Toaster Bath, who puts in a $31 donation, and thank you very much, Live Laugh Toaster Bath, for that support. And also, it's really good to see you. Once again, it's been a minute. And they said, good evening, Enforcers, and happy belated birthday to you, Enforcer Matt, and thank you very much for the happy belated birthday. They said, I haven't been able to catch a live stream lately, but take a live chat, please, and LOC.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Live Laugh Toaster Bath, and have a good evening to you. It's been a while, actually. We haven't seen you here for a little bit. And I got to thank you for being here tonight and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying the stream, and I gotta say, I thank you for being here tonight. We haven't seen you in a lot of them, but we're always happy to have you here, and it's great to know that you're here with us tonight. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, and we will make sure to get one from the live chat in your honor, Live Laugh Toaster Bath, and long live the Lee Spring Army. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so this question goes to Alan Mandel, who said, do you think that China is behind Cambodia's actions, and did China instigate the war or part of a strategy of the war? Because it seems like it could be another war that China is involved in.
After doing some additional research, this is entirely, like many other wars, entirely between Cambodia and Thailand. The landmine was actually placed right near to the area of the footpaths on the Thai side of the Preah Vihar temple, meaning that this is a larger part of the endless land tensions that they had because the guy was blown up here. So with that in mind, I would have to say the Chinese probably didn't instigate this, because this has been a long-lasting issue for decades between the Cambodians and the Thai. And the Thai just decided, you know what, screw these people. They keep on legally challenging us internationally to try and get back this temple. We're going to plant a landmine on one of the paths they have to the temple, and we'll see how they like that. And so pretty much they went outside of the legal framework that Thailand and Cambodia had been working through for about the past decade and a half, and they planted a landmine on the footpath to show a clear signal: we're not giving you this temple back, we'll kill you if you try and take it back. And then the Thai went, well, you just violated our national sovereignty, now we're going to beat your ass. And so that's how the war largely happened. So I would have to honestly say, I don't think the Chinese really did any instigating to get the Cambodians to do that, because I also have to tell y'all that the Thai have been pretty vicious on the international legal front on trying to get that temple under their control territorially, which is, while I have to say this, being vicious in a legal perspective doesn't give a nation a justification to take a violent action in force of arms, like blowing up a soldier. That doesn't give them that justification. But also for that reason, we know that the Cambodians would have needed no justification to cross the border and plant a landmine just to get back at the Thai for keeping up a vicious legal battle in international courts about who actually owns that land. So I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And also, so far, we have seen really no official support from the Chinese Foreign Ministry for the Cambodian position in this conflict. And that's also the reason why I'm believing that the Chinese really didn't compel them to do this, because the U.S. is also not really biting either. We're actually threatening to equally punish both countries for the war instead of supporting the Thai. So that means that it isn't even becoming a proxy conflict. We're seeing the Chinese are really not supporting the Cambodians at all either. So generally seems like something that naturally was created between the two because of the long-lasting animosity about who owns the Preah Vihar temple and whose side of the border it should be on. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I thank you once again for the support and help with this channel to keep on running Live, Laugh, Toaster Bath and sponsoring that live chat question. And so with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of our news for the night.
All right, so the last one here goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $26 donation, and thank you very much, Cliff, as well, for that support and for being a longtime channel legend. He said, my question is, why isn't the 7-Eleven war heavily drone-based? And the answer is, I haven't been watching the Enforcer channel for the past 3 years.
Well, maybe. It may also be the fact that Cambodia has no military budget, and I think the Thai are only building up their military abilities, assessing their regional threats, and no one has any drone forces or anything else for that matter that even gets close to that, so they don't really consider it necessary to get a drone force. I think that's the real reason why, but still, the joke is pretty funny, Cliff H, and I gotta thank you impressively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because you're an old guard and a channel legend and have helped this channel to keep running for years, and hopefully many more years on into the future. And so, a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one, which is actually inside of East Asia, believe it or not. We were able to hear that some People's Liberation Army Air Force jets were seen in the Taiwan Strait, and we also were able to hear that naval exercises are underway by the America Amphibious Ready Group, with the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, or the MEU, embarked on this amphibious ready group, led by a 14-ship group sail in the Coral Sea as part of Exercise Talisman Sabre 25 last week. In this picture alone, forward deployed was the USS America, the LHA-6, and it will also be shifting its home port from Japan to San Diego later this year, and will be replaced by the LHA-7, the USS Tripoli. But this is a picture from the naval exercise, and quite a decent amount of LHDs were present in this naval exercise, along with auxiliary vessels of the U.S. Navy and multiple other countries from the region. Oh, what's that right down there in the bottom left, Matthew? Is that a Japanese naval destroyer? Why, yes, it is. And that's actually over there to the left, a Korean naval destroyer. So it actually was a multinational front that was involved in this naval exercise, including the Japanese LHD, which you can see over there in the center right of the picture where my mouse cursor is at. So pretty neat overall. But moving on from that and out of that little bit of news, it's now time for us to move on over into the state of Israel, as we were able to hear that Israel has given an official stance on the targeting of Iran's leading nuclear scientist, stating that it'll deter young Iranian scientists from participating in a program that proved to be a death sentence. So it appears that they're trying to compel people through threat of death in Iran to not be a part of the nuclear weapons program. Seems interesting. We also were able to hear that Israel stated that they are going to be attempting to break out the hostages, or at least Hamas sources say that they are on high alert due to the fear that Israeli forces are going to attempt to free the few surviving hostages left inside the Gaza Strip. Moving on from that news in the Middle East and on into Eastern Europe, finally, we were able to hear that the German government has stated that 3 Patriot air defense systems have been given to Ukraine, with further deliveries and replenishments being conducted of its own stockpiles, with the United States further supporting, according to a statement from the Washington Post. We also were able to hear that apparently the European Union is withholding $1.7 billion worth in aid to Ukraine over corruption concerns, at least from the moment. And the cut follows the attempt to bring the anti-corruption agencies under the control of the Prosecutor General's office, prompting protests and criticism from allies. The aid may be restored if Ukraine meets key governance benchmarks, meaning that they're going to have to release these anti-corruption agencies out of the control of the General Prosecutor's office in the office of the President of Ukraine, at least for the moment. But moving on from that, and on into the major news inside of the Russian Federation, which is also quite significant today as well. We have been able to hear that the Ukrainians have once again hit the Stavropol region with drone forces. Take a look at these clean clips from the fresh early morning in Stavropol. Oh, and there it goes.
Oh no, look at that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Up to you, man.
You know what's ironic? It's a place that's supposed to be developing electronic warfare equipment, at least a little bit, and they didn't have enough electronic warfare equipment at the factory to protect their electronic warfare equipment.
You know, it is pretty ironic after all. But anyways, you see them hitting it again. Up to your line.
Kaçın, geliyor. Geliyor.
I mean, you see everyone in the market watching the attack take place. It's a Liudi. Oh, look, a free air show.
I like the sound effects.
But anyways, moving on from that and on to our last clip. Here's another clip of the attack. And that was the drone that makes you cry. I don't know if y'all heard it, but as soon as that drone hit the building, before the sound even reached them, some woman just started spontaneously crying in the clip. Like, listen to it, listen. Bro, it's the
It was
drone.
instantaneous. It sounded almost like that crying that the people of North Korea do when the great leader walks in and he's just, forgotten his box of donuts back at the house, so they like start crying like profusely.
Because they all know they're going to the gulag. But moving on from that, we also get to hear of a Russian Su-27UB being destroyed by some Ukrainian-aligned partisans in the Krasnodar Krai Oblast. That right there is an Su-27, folks. And they're about to cook it. This is like binging with babish, but this is the Russian version. So they call this grilling with Ivan.
Grilling with Ivan. Also, are we sure this is Ivan, or are we sure this isn't some type of Ukrainian or something? Because this guy's acting real sus, like the way he's like wandering around over here.
Bro, he's kind of like slinking through the grass now. Look at him.
I wasn't very sure if this was a Ukrainian or not. And also, that fire was weirdly started right where he was standing, where he was filming at first. I wasn't sure about that.
Dude, this is grilling with Ivan, bro. I don't know what you talking about.
This is grilling with Volodymyr. This right here is something else. I had to throw a filet mignon on that bee.
We need real grills, long-lasting grills. We need to take Su-27s and use them as charcoal briquettes. We need to cook them. Real cooking, long-lasting cooking. But moving on from that and on into Uryul, we also get to see a new Ukrainian drone. We don't know what this thing is. I'm calling it the blimp because this thing is shaped like one, and it also apparently was jet-powered. It crashed without exploding, and nobody really knows what this thing is because there's no official identifier for this type of drone yet. But it is Ukrainian. So moving on from that and out of that news, it's now time for us to get on into the Frontline news, where we were able to hear that the Ukrainians were slamming Russian forces once again hiding inside of the pipes. Or more so, hiding inside of the tubes. And the Ukrainians said, hello, Russians, we come in and we tie your tubes. And we can see them doing that right there. We also see the drone coming in and taking a look at this nice brick real estate here, flying in and clearing it out, getting it ready for renovations. We can also see they found another pipe. And I guess you could say that was just simply a pipe dream for the Russians. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I'll tell you what, the Ukrainians are always locked and loaded, always one in the pipe.
Man, I'm telling you, bro. They got one in the pipe.
Man, I love it when you hear like those operator types like say, "Do you carry one in the pipe?" I'm like, huh?
I don't
know one in the pipe.
I don't know, man. I don't have enough coin for that one.
Oh man, you gotta have some coin for that can.
Man, the coin one drives me crazy, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like, bruh, I don't know what it is with that one, but that one makes me absolutely, like, almost crash out. Like that little bot that you showed me today in front of that DJI store that fell and it absolutely crashed out. That's how I feel whenever I hear anyone say, do you have enough coin? Like, we're in the damn Middle Ages as merchants asking about, like, groschen or something. That's like, we live in America, dude. Like, it's bucks and dollars. But anyways, we can see this Ukrainian drone here spotting a Ukrainian Mi-8 in flight, which actually was pretty cool looking. And look at that. What the?
They've got the go faster stripes on this thing too.
Bro, they got them speed stripes.
Plus 10 horsepower to the motor.
Oh, bro, they had the nav light on too. Did you see that? Look at that.
I sure did.
Right there, yeah. Wild. Wild. Well, that's the end of that clip from the Magura. That was pretty neat, though. Moving on from that and on down into our location unknowns, we were able to see a new Russian naval drone that had unbelievable firepower. This is a pontoon bridge, and this is actually pretty much a barge nearly in size. And this is a Russian naval drone similar in size to that of a Sea Baby or a Magura. Look at the impressive firepower of this drone. Whoa!
Oh wow, look, it's that EMP that Iran was trying to make the whole time. They put it on the boat.
Dude, look at, you know what's so interesting about this though is that when you go back and film it, the explosion, there's like a second explosion here coming from like the hull of this barge. You know, not really from the Russian drone.
I told you this before the stream started.
I know, and I'm trying to cue you in to be able to talk about it because you said it and you're right. It looks like there was some explosives that they planted inside of the barge to make it look like the explosive mass on the boat was more than it was.
Man, they totally added explosives to that target right there. There's no way that drone boat was carrying that much of a yield like that. No way in hell. Like that shockwave off of that was freaking massive. Like what is the theoretical capacity of that drone boat? Like what even is the poundage it can carry?
Maybe like 1,000 at the best. But usually I think
That
it's
is not
like
a 1,000
500.
pound explosion.
That's like 4,000 maybe.
Something. It's definitely like common sense tells you that's a huge explosion right there. It's a lot larger.
Yeah, I'm doubting this. Also, the fact if you look, you can actually see that this explosion was so strong, it actually cleaved the ship in two. Because watch the bow and the stern, or the stern and the bow on the ship when the explosion occurs, and you'll see that the back is rocking separately from the front, meaning that the actual backbone of the ship was broken from the explosion. And I can promise y'all that that drone does not have that kind of explosive power. Look at this. Look at that, dude. Look, the front and the back is shaking separately from each other, meaning that it literally ripped the barge in two.
Yeah, that's crazy, honestly. And also, what is going to vaporize the entire barge with one little small drone boat? It's like, what was the Russians' explanation for what type of explosive was even on board the drone boat? Like, what was it?
I don't know. I know they didn't really give an explanation. They're just like, look at this new drone boat, and then they just showed the video. They didn't even explain anything about it. Probably because it would not add up if they explained anything about it.
Probably so. It seems like totally fake.
Yeah, it seems fake, in my personal opinion, allegedly. But moving on from that and into the casualty report, we were able to hear that the losses were nice today. Oh, Miss Disa, keeper of the record, stated that 158 supply trucks is the 17th highest daily loss, and second day over 150 in the past 2 months. Highest tanks since July 10th, and troop losses are in the current average range of 1,000 to 1,100. And it does appear that the losses are decent, as we were able to hear of 1,080 Russian soldiers wounded and killed in the past 24 hours, along with 7 APCs, 158 supply trucks, 7 main battle tanks, 35 artillery systems, 125 drones, and 2 MLRSs. Holy moly, those are some impressive losses right there. I tell you what, if Patton was alive today, he wouldn't be riding on no Sherman. But nevertheless, it is time for us to start moving on into our frontline news. But we do have a question for all of y'all right now on the Ukrainian strikes into Российской Federacji. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well? Tell me.
All right, so we have been hearing for quite some time that the new major Russian offensive is allegedly right around the corner. And we are, of course, seeing Ukraine continue their deep strikes into Russian territory. So what do you think is about to happen coming up here in the next couple of weeks? And when Russia launches this large offensive, how do you think Ukraine is going to handle it? So 34% said it'll be tough but manageable, while 30% said that Ukraine will hold the lines 100%, and 29% said Ukraine's about to get slammed hard. And before they got the new U.S. aid and the new European aid, I would say they were about to get slammed. But now that they have more aid and more Patriots and more Patriot missiles, I'm going to say it'll be tough but manageable, because while the Russians are incompetent, they do have the raw numbers, and you have to keep that in mind. So even though it's a poorly trained force, they got to at least hold off the meat grinder, because the meat grinder, they are throwing more meat into it, so you obviously got to protect. So I'm with the 33%. It'll be tough but manageable. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my personal opinion, it will be a little tough but manageable, at least in my offensive. I think the Ukrainians can manage to conduct a successful offensive, but that requires that they have a large amount of firepower and arms given to them. And if they get that, I think they can do good. If they don't get that, I think they might be in for a much tougher time. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can, in my opinion. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news that we have for the rest of the night. Before we move on to that, folks, I was actually looking at what Matthew, something interesting here. I was looking at this, Matthew, and apparently we're actually a pretty decent trading partner with Thailand. Because while you were talking about that poll, I was like, you know what? Someone brought up something about that, and I was thinking about trade with Thailand. I was like, what do we trade with them? So, what do we import from Thailand, Matthew? Would you happen to know? Take a guess.
A lot of clothing, I'd imagine.
Oh, actually, our major trading components are farm products, Boeing aircraft, and LNG.
A Boeing aircraft.
Boeing aircraft parts, but
Oh, okay.
some of the more important parts of the aircraft that help them to stay in the air. So it's kind of it's a like should we try and threaten them with trade sort of a deal, because it's like sounds like Boeing kind of needs them, like it's like yeah, but anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on. We'll all get into that in the question segment later tonight. But nevertheless, moving on from that and on into the area around the Stavropol forest, we were able to hear that the Ukrainians were still hitting Russian tanks and knocking them on out, which we could see in these clips right here.
Also, isn't it wild, folks, that we're literally like covering like 4 major fronts on one stream these days? It's honestly insane. Like the whiplash between these segments is like it catches up to me after a while. I'm like, dang, we've covered like almost 4 major fronts at this point. It's a lot of stuff. Hopefully, it doesn't open up to 5 major fronts, or we're going to be we're going to need some extra caffeine.
Man, I'm going to be honest with you, we probably will.
Or we're going to crash out, one or the other.
Bro, like that DJI drone. Like, but anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see the Stavropol forest in the morning. This is where Slender Man gets you. Yeah, like this is where Slender Man gets you.
This is where you hear about those abductions by those interdimensional beings.
Bro, I think this is the pocket dimension, honestly.
This is not the back rooms. This is the back world.
Man, it's terrifying, like, honestly. But moving on from that, it was me doing. Thank you so much. And moving on down into the Pokrovsk area, we also got to see the Ukrainians hitting some Russian forces with a grad battery. Take a look at this. You can see them firing off their grads, which we were very glad to see. And we see them here getting hit pretty significantly. Sorry, everyone, I was a little bit quiet there for a second. I was actually still looking into the whole trade thing with the Thai.
Oh, look, they've got the same equipment that they're using down there in Cambodia. That's crazy.
Man, look at that. Damn, they must be from Thailand, the way they back that ass up. Damn. But anyways, here's also a clip of the Russians attempting to break through towards Pokrovsk and failing today. It didn't go too well. Oh, and there goes one of them.
Oh, there were some
nasty.
scrappers off to the right, some turrets or something.
Looks like they're getting some flight miles.
Oh, look at this thing. He just lost it. He's full speed.
And we see here that they're continuing to hit the Russians. The Russians are running into the tree lines here.
Eric Kress said, Enforcer Matt, you ought to start teaming up with the hot dog man and Chris's mom to help with the 5 front streams. Yeah, we can hire the hot dog man as the janitor, because I'll tell you what, I need some help with the cleaning duties. And Chris's mom, well, I'm not sure if we have a position open for Chris's mom, but you know, there's always some job out there, I'm sure.
Well, for the hot dog man, we've got the job of quitting YouTube. That might be a good job for him. Honestly, might do him a little bit better. And for Chris's mom, we don't associate with those kind of people. But anyways, we can see they're continuing to get hit out there in the distance. And that's the end of the clip. But moving on from that and on into our next clips, further on down the line towards Shevchenko, we also get to see the Ukrainians hitting even more Russian forces, which apparently that's duplicate, so we'll be getting rid of that. And moving on over to Muravka, we also get to see a Ukrainian Mi-24 heading on towards the front, with, of course, a trap remix being played in the background.
They play trap remixes because they're out here trapping the Russians. What the hell? Go back for a second. Was that what was that driving down the road?
I don't know.
Is that a Pontiac Aztec?
I don't think so.
Huh. I don't know what that is, but it's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. It's spoiling this picturesque landscape, though. It's actually pretty cool watching these helicopters fly over Ukraine.
This is like California, like the Napa Valley or something. Not
Dude,
really. The Californians are about to roast the hell out of me for that.
Dude, the Unreal Engine 5's graphics are surreal. Look at this. But anyways, moving on from that and on further down the line towards Kurakove, we also get to see the 46th Air Mobile Brigade taking out some Russian soldiers down here in the trees. Take a look at them. They're down in the trees. They're not the Lorax, though, and they sure as hell ain't speaking for those trees. Uh-oh. Ew. Not a good day for them. And we can see the smoke rising. We see them coming in.
What's the name of this drone? Zelenskyy Bobry.
Bobber Kurva, man.
Hello, Bobry.
Let's see this. Dude, this was also called Zelenskyy Bobry. I don't know why. Also at the top it said Russo Riz.
Risen up them Ruskies.
And that's the end of the clip right there. Man, bro, I don't know if you see this comment, dude. Someone said so and so is gonna be your daddy until 2032, most likely. Okay, I gotta ask though, why do you think that that's the point? Like, I don't know what it is with you people, like you political people, and the idea that we actually care who's the president. I don't care who the president is. I just care that they're actually doing a good job as far as this channel is concerned in foreign policy, which I would say that both the current and prior administration have not really done that good of a job at, just to be completely frank with you. So I don't really care who is the president or how long they're the president. Well, as long as they only serve 2 terms, because that's what's constitutionally acceptable. But I don't really care who the president is or what they're doing domestically, because that is an ebb and flow thing, and that's what people vote for. But as far as foreign policy goes and what America's positioning in the world is, and whether it's good for the United States or not, there's only one answer as to what's good and what's not good. And I don't care who the president is. If they're not doing a good job, it's not a good job. That's just the truth of it. Like, you know, if I like you, but you suck at doing a job I hire you to do, I'm going to fire you because you're not doing a good job. That's the same thing with anyone in politics. If they're doing a good job, I don't care who they are. They're going to stay because I think they're doing a good job. But if they do a bad job, they're going to get fired because we don't keep people around that do bad jobs. This isn't a relationship thing. I'm not I'm not getting in bed or going on whining and dining dates with the current or former president. They're there to do a job, and if they're not doing the foreign policy job good, I'm going to say it, because that's one of their main things that they're supposed to do. Like, you know, come on, like, be real and think with an actual brain. Because every time anyone says something about the current president or the last president, you political people come out of the woodworks drinking your Republican and Democrat Kool-Aids, and you want to sit there and say, oh, you're attacking my guy who's an angel. Guess what? Neither one of them's an angel. get real with the program. Neither one of them's an angel, and while both of them might have done some good things here and there are also things that could be critiqued and improved upon, and that's reality. Like, that's not that little hooky kooky land that y'all live in. Like, that's ridiculous. This is real life where people are flawed and they can err and they can do wrong. So there you go. But moving on from that, and on out of the front lines, it is time for us to finally move on up into Kyiv, where we were able to hear a speech from the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, here on day 1249 of the war, and it appears that he is now at the White Wall. So, without further ado, here's the speech. Speech!
Здоров'я, шановні українці, найголовніше перше військові. Сьогодні вже кілька разів були доповіді по нашому фронту, по наших операціях, Збройні сили, Служба безпеки України, розвідка. Я дякую всім за далекобійність. Кожен бачить, що українські дрони досягають цілей. Доповідь генерала Сирського, багато уваги саме до Покровського напрямку. Є успішні дії наших підрозділів на Сумщині. Дякую вам. Знищують окупанта в прикордонні. Це дуже важливо. Було сьогодні, на жаль, багато російських ударів по наших містах, по наших громадах, Суми, в тому числі по українській енергетиці, також Дніпро, Харків, Херсонщина, Донеччина. Всюди, де це потрібно, миттєве реагування рятувальників ДСНС України, всіх служб. Дякую всім вам за оперативність. Будемо відповідати на кожен російський удар. Важливі доповіді були розвідок, служба зовнішньої розвідки про ефективність санкцій проти Росії, проти пов'язаних з Росією осіб, втрати у ворога, економічні втрати дійсно відчутні. Будуть ще більш відчутні. Я хочу подякувати всім в світі, хто допомагає. Зараз саме такий момент, коли треба натиснути на Росію, натиснути так, щоб вже наступного року війни не було. Вони повинні усвідомити, що перетерпіти у них не вийде. Санкції мають дійсно забрати російський потенціал. Ми працюємо саме заради цього. Була також у мене розмова з ГУР, також щоденний режим роботи у нашій дипломатії цими днями, багато комунікацій з партнерами, доручив секретарю Ради національної безпеки і оборони активніше залучити зовнішнє фінансування на дрони. Доручив також урядовцям і міністру оборони України активніше перевіряти всі домовленості, які є з партнерами. Те, що маємо реалізувати на 100%. Але зараз поки виконується, на жаль, не повністю. Очікую відповідні доповіді на тижні. І ще є урядове рішення на підтримку університетів у прифронтових регіонах, у прикордонних містах Сумщина, Запоріжжя, Харків. Додаткові кошти 300 мільйонів гривень. Саме для таких складних обставин, для закладів вищої освіти, які бережуть наші студентські спільноти, наші студентські колективи, які навчають попри все. Просто молодці. Надзвичайно важливо, щоб українські освітні центри збереглися. Університет Каразіна, багато інших. Ми будемо і надалі підтримувати вас. Сьогодні ж я підписав указ щодо Шевченківської премії. Це крок на розширення премії. Багато було обговорень з експертами, з культурною спільнотою. Комітет премії дуже добре попрацював. Тож вже наступного року Шевченківською премією можна буде відзначати також, окрім звичних номінацій, українську фотографію. Зараз в умовах війни це дуже цінно, щоб всі емоції, щоб всі сили людей засвідчувати. Також додано номінацію з кураторської справи, також сучасний дизайн і багато є дійсно сильного нашого українського графічного дизайну, шрифтів. Все це заслуговує на особливу увагу. Розширили і звичні нам же літературу та музичну номінації Шевченківської премії. Ми будемо також шукати формат, як подякувати тим нашим людям, які бережуть українську культурну спадщину. І це буде спеціальний формат. І за час до Дня Незалежності України разом з культурною спільнотою, разом з усіма фахівцями ми знайдемо необхідні рішення. Я дякую всім, хто з нами, хто з Україною. Слава Україні!
And arounf
Heroam
slava.
Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, here on day 1249 of the War News stream. And it's time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. And it's a fun segment. It's a great segment, Jack. We love it. It's a great segment. People will be going, when's the segment coming? It's coming now. And I got to say that it's going to be a blast. I got to thank everyone so far for watching. We actually had a peak viewership tonight of 12.8 thousand people. And 105,000 people have watched this stream during the news segment, which is absolutely crazy because we are consistently punching up into the top 50 streams in America every single day here on YouTube. And we are massively appreciative and thankful for everyone enjoying this channel and watching it. I also have to say really quickly to everyone, because I see some people getting some questions here, this channel is not political, and to just tell you all my personal political standing, I don't have one. I just generally look at things on a case-by-case basis, and if it's good, it's good, and if it's bad, it's bad. That's what it is, and that's how we generally work the foreign policy analysis on the channel. As far as politics go, just to make this quite clear to everyone, this channel is not concerned nor involved in the domestic politics of the United States or the domestic affairs and politics of other foreign countries. That is not the scope of this channel. If you're looking for that, there are plenty of political commentators out there, but we're never going to become one. If you would like us to become a political commentator, I thank you for the praise that you would think that we'd have good political comments, but I personally want to stay out of that and generally stay out of that whole cesspit because I wouldn't really agree with anyone at the end of the day, and we'd be a voice on pretty much on an island of our own. Outside of that, we also have a rule against domestic politics here in the chat. If you are a Kool-Aid drinker and you are just dead set that your party is perfect and it's great and that everyone needs to know that and that you're going to fight anyone who disagrees with you, you're not really welcome here. If you are a political person and you have your comments, that's great. You have a freedom to do that as an American citizen, but this is the Enforcer channel. This is not a public forum like a sidewalk or a public park. We don't have political commentary here. And we also do not allow people in the chat to have political commentary. This channel is entirely focused on the American-centric mindset of supporting American and Western interests in for the nation's national security, for our trade security, and also generally for our allies abroad. That is the general position that we take on the channel, so things are analyzed from that standpoint fairly and equally. But beyond that, we don't get into any of the other stuff. And also, I would have to tell y'all that if you come in here with a political comment and you say, the enforcers are this, or I think that they're that, those are against the rules. So with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, just makes it a little bit clear for some people who may be new or may not know or may have forgotten that that's generally how the channel works. That's our running framework with politics. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, I understand, Matthew, that we have a lot of questions. A lot of them. A load of them. And Matthew, please, take it away.
All right, and it's that time of the night. It is that time for the question segment, the most anticipated part of the stream, according to some people in the chat, and according to me. But anyways, jumping into our question segment right off the bat, we're fresh out of polls, and we're jumping into our first one, which goes to Jody Mandelias, who's a channel legend, and throws in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Jody, for the second largest support of the night, and we do appreciate that very much. And she said, Frontier Days Rodeo is in town, but I finally made the live. And is there any sense that Cambodia is just wildly inaccurate, or are they targeting civilians? LSA, and thanks for the hard work.
And LSA, and I hope you've been having fun with that, Jody Mandelias, and thank you for making it to the live, even with the Frontier Days Rodeo in town, and rodeos are always fun. And I gotta say that as far as the Cambodians, they are not inaccurate, at least for their fire into Thailand. They are actually pretty accurate with it because they did target a 7-Eleven directly and a hospital, and the spread of the MLRS fire was showing that those were dialed in directly as the targets to be hit. So from what we generally understand, at least in Thailand, they are actually accurately firing at stuff. But as far as the Laotians, it's a little bit up to the question as to whether that was poor training or an attempted false flag. And I'm kind of actually leaning a little bit more towards it was most likely an attempted false flag, considering that all of the artillery fire that they've been conducting into Thailand is aimed at civilians deliberately, from what we can tell so far. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you so much for the support. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, Jody Manalias. You're an old guard and a channel legend here. And thank you so much for enjoying the hard work we do to put together this news every night. It's becoming a lot more than it used to be because now we have to study, research, and get ready to present and speak about and analyze multiple different conflicts around the world on any given night. It's not just Ukraine anymore like it used to be at the beginning of the channel. It's quite literally anything happening. So I thank you so much for appreciating that and enjoying that, because I think that we are the one of the only daily world news channels that runs on YouTube literally daily. I don't think there's a lot of other channels out there that do that on a literal daily basis every week, but I do thank you so much for supporting and enjoying it, because your support helps us to make that kind of hard work possible to keep this news coming out every single night. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Danny B. Once again, he puts in the second support of the night, and thank you very much, Danny, for that support, and we do appreciate that. The $30 support once again. And Danny said, Chef Danny again, and I'm going to be posting my new menu for my catering business on Monday, and it's going to be Cajun, and I'm doing blackened Maui dirty rice, Cajun Alfredo with shrimp, and red beans and rice. And honestly, that sounds really good. That sounds extremely tasty. And also, I saw you, Danny, saying in the live chat about doing the cooking video that we had mentioned a while back. I'll be straight up honest with you. I got to have a simple recipe, man. I have to have a simple recipe, or otherwise I'm gonna make a fool out of myself, because I can't cook worth a damn, really. It's very light cooking. I usually buy very simple recipes. And also, I got to get my stove fixed, because I literally have had a broken stove for over a month and a half, which has honestly been kind of convenient because it gives me an excuse to eat out a lot more. So honestly, it kind of worked out. But at the same time, I got to get my stove fixed, which is also a bit of a burden. But thank you very much, Danny. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, Danny B, and that sounds delicious. That sounds freaking amazing. I wish I could have some of that right now. Every time you come on, Danny B, you always make me go, dang, now I'm hungry for some real good food. And then we just get okay food. Or there's this one place that actually makes sandwiches that are really, really good. But we don't want to wear that place out by having it every day. So we kind of have it like every other day or every other few days. But still, a huge thanks to you so much for the support, Danny B. And also, I've got to say, if we could have you catering for the Enforcer channel, we do it. Maybe in the future we can. We won't be that far away from your stomping grounds of Colorado. We'll be over in Salt Lake City. So it may be possible. It might be a possibility. Who knows? But beyond that, I do thank you massively once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for the incredible support tonight and helping to be the official chef of the LSA.
Yes, indeed. And our next one goes to Cameron, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Cameron, as well, for that support. He said, thank you for the news that y'all do. And great question. Though, why do you guys think Cambodia started this huge mess?
It's over the Priya Vihara temple. Both sides have been battling over who owns that for a while now. It's this one right here. The Cambodians claim they own it, and the Thai claim they own it. Recently, in I believe it was 2009, an international court declared that the Cambodians rightfully own the Preah Vihara temple, but this hasn't stopped the Thai from continuing on legal battles and challenges to that claim in international courts, and pretty much the Thai are not willing to drop that, so legally they keep it going through lawfare. So the Cambodians decided that the best response to that, at least a few days ago, was to move on from lawfare to direct warfare, and they planted a landmine on the path of the Thai soldiers. They walked over the landmine, it blew up, it killed one of them and wounded a couple of others. So, while, and Thailand, by the way, does have a legal right to continue to challenge the ownership of the Preah Vihara temple if they wanted to, but Cambodia does not have a right, or Thailand, to violate the sovereignty of the other country and forcibly take land or kill someone from the other country to get back at them. That's something that they do not have any sort of a sort of a right to do. So that's generally where the conflict came from, at least at the moment. But both countries clearly do not like each other. So this conflict is once again an extension of that sort of an animosity, and it's just really taking off from this point and blossoming into a full-scale war. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Cameron. Great question, by the way, and I think you want to give us support and help with this channel to keep on running. And once again, folks, that's something that you don't hear a lot out there in the news. You know, there's a people don't get this. People don't get this. But there are reasons for war. Like, people don't know that. But there actually are reasons to wars. Very little wars are fought without reason. Most of them have some sort of an underlying issue below them that actually led to a war happening. It could be economic, it could be territorial, it could be for national ambitions, just the fact that they're different ethnic or cultural groups and they hate each other because of long-held historical differences. There is always a reason for a war. And that's what a lot of people just don't get, because a lot of people think that wars are completely pointless and completely useless, and after doing this for a couple of years, I can promise y'all that a lot of wars are actually with purpose. There are very few of them that I've ever seen that end up not having a purpose or end up being completely pointless. Like hell, any of them. Throw out any war that's going on right now, and I can tell you a reason or a purpose that both sides are fighting it that is actually somewhat justifiable, at least from their standpoint or position. Doesn't mean it's justifiable or understandable from our side, we're Americans, but you still could find from any side standpoint the reason why they would continue to push forward with a war, not just as a government but as a people. And that's another thing that people don't get, is people will be like, oh, you know, wars, you fight for the rich man, and the rich man keeps his kids at home and you go fight. But then a lot of people don't really know the actual consequences of not fighting that war and losing that war, and what would happen to them as a result of that, because you're going to be affected more so than the rich guy. So, you know, it's like, you know, it kind of becomes everyone's war at that point. And that's what a lot of people don't get about it. And it's always something a little bit interesting to me, because the modern, like, I don't want to say this in a criticizing way, but I feel like Americans in general are some of the most detached people in the modern day possible. I really feel like that's the case, because the more I hear of average Americans or the mainstream talking points, they never are grounded in logic or sense. People on the left and the right say that wars are pointless, and both of them give different explanations as to why, and it's completely a fabrication of reality. It's not even real. Like the logic that they're working off of, oh, people die in war, or I'm fighting for some rich guy. Like they don't live in the same country as the rich guy, and they wouldn't be affected equally by the outcome of a war that's going to affect their country, not just the rich guy or the poor guy. And there's always those sorts of debates that are being put out there about why wars are pointless, or wars are scary, or that people get hurt in war. And that's all true, but that's also completely forgetting that there are usually reasons to fight wars. Like, not to say that's a point to say let's be jingoist and just go fight every war we can come up with under the sun, but at the same time, there is a point to be said that defensive wars, or wars that have to happen because there's no other resort or option, they have to happen. Like, you know, like, and a lot of people just don't get that. And I feel like that's really the issue these days that is causing the world to become very unstable, is that this sort of a weak-minded, fanciful idea that wars should just be avoided at all costs and should not happen is actually what's spurring a lot of these wars to happen around the world, because everyone sees, oh, the Americans have gone limp and have no spine, so we can just go to killing each other now because no one's going to stop us. And so everyone just goes at it. There's no diplomatic approaches before these wars happen that we conduct. We're half-assed in everything, honestly, these days with foreign policy. And it's getting so old. It's getting so tiresome, because it's like, if we had a spine, or at least we had some brains, we would end up usually diplomatically resolving the situation before it turned into a war, or by the time it turned into a war and it was a war, we would go in and find a way to support the right side, or understand that this war was worth fighting for our allies, and then end up supporting them or finding some sort of a peaceful resolution to it that way. But that generally is the reason why the war between Thailand and Cambodia started, and that is also why I find this idea that's being put out in foreign policy right now by the president of both sides are equally at fault and will punish them equally. Kids, stop fighting, don't make me turn this car around sort of a mindset isn't working. It's never going to work. It hasn't worked anywhere else in the past 6 months, and it's not going to work here. The people who are supporting that and pushing it, they're the typical sorts of like Kool-Aid drinking people that you see on either political side. And like, and right now it's one side, but in the next 4 years it'll probably be the other. And they all drink the same Kool-Aid, and they can't hear that something is not a good idea or a good approach because their person is a genius and they're infallible and quite truly in the best physical health. They're sharper than a tack. They have an IQ of 310. There's nothing that they can do wrong. And there's so many endless things that I can tell y'all over the past 3.5 years that we have watched on this channel, just seeing how it unfolds in the natural turn of events that have been done, that have been so bad by the current administration and the past administration in foreign policy, that if they were done a different way, it would have completely turned out differently. There's a million different things, because like the thing, folks, is that I'm not saying that just to say it as a rhetorical point, like a lot of other people would, that say stuff and then drop it and then move on. We live in foreign policy every day on this channel. That's what we do as a job. Y'all know that. Y'all been watching us for years. And so we watch, like, we'll sit here and say something like, this is a bad idea. And we actually sit around every single day and watch these bad ideas unfold and literally show the exact reason why we said it was a bad idea. Like with the Syrians or with Hamas or with Iran. Every single one of them turned out to be a bad idea to force a ceasefire. And with the Houthis, we forced a ceasefire with the Houthis. Don't y'all remember that? And it was because the Houthis told us they would never attack another commercial ship passing through the Red Sea. And what did they do yesterday? They attacked another one, and that's the third one they attacked in a week. The ceasefires and wars being avoided are not always the answer. It's not. And I wish people would I wish people would understand. I'm saying that on this channel because it's not a political point. It is a point of national security interest. This isn't even political because this is what the last president did before this one. And we were criticizing that president in that administration over taking the very same actions that the current president is taking. And we were saying, why aren't we there? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Why are we trying to stop this from happening? The last administration took the approach in the Middle East that the current one took. We need to stop everything. We need to be limitedly involved. We don't need to be there. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to support the Israelis. We don't need to stop the Houthis. And if we are ever forced to do anything, it's going to last one night. It's going to be one large airstrike, and it's going to be over. And we were back then saying in the last administration, why in the world are we doing this? Why are we not putting our foot down? The whole reason why the region is becoming more and more unstable is because everyone's seeing that we're not going to be there to stop them in their hostile acts, even if it's in our defense of our interest or our very sailors and ships that are passing through this area. We have to do something. And people back then, because we were criticizing the prior president, wanted to call us MAGA Republican Nazis because we were saying that we needed to take a stronger, more assertive approach. And then the new president comes in and we were saying the exact same thing. Why are we taking these cheap ceasefire approaches? Why are we doing all of these things that are clearly not in our interest? We're forcing ceasefires and not resolving the underlying issues. We're doing A, B, and C. These things are not good. It's not going to resolve the situations. We're just pushing them to happen months or a year down the road. It's going to be even bloodier and it's going to be even worse. And now, because the president isn't a Democrat, so we're not a MAGA or Nazi for criticizing him. Now the president's a Republican. And now that we're criticizing this same president for the same issues of the last president, now we're called bleeding heart liberals or something like that. And it's just, it's ridiculous because it feels like, from my position, folks, that America is almost gridlocked because the people who are supporting and voting in the current country, in the current state of the country right now, are so blind. Most of them are. They can't even see that the same things happening now that was happening in the last administration, that was a mistake. And it's happening again, and it's still a mistake. And it's like I don't know how in the world people can't see this, because there's not a, oh, these people are devils in foreign policy or these people are amazing. They're all the same. Like, they're all the same. It's a crazy sort of a thing, and it's all predicated off of this idea that wars are bad. There's never one that we can justify, even if it's in our own defense, and we just have to avoid them at all cost. So I hope that addresses that somewhat well.
I said amen.
Amen. But I hope that addresses that well, at least from my standpoint, in my opinion, because, geez, folks, it's It's a tough world to be in at this point, at least in America, with how little people think and how little people in the government think. It's a little bit of a tougher one to be in. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And moving on to our next super chat here. This one goes to LC39A, who puts in a $100 donation. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. The biggest support of the night. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, right on, superstars. And he said, this is for your stove fund, Matt. And also, thank you very much for the stove fund. I will tell you this, though. The stove has to be fixed by the landlord. And I'm counting on the landlord to fix that stove because right now that stove is not fixed. But hopefully it gets fixed soon. But anyways, I will put that toward the replacement food fund. Since the stove is not working, I will put that toward the pizza fund. Because, of course, when the stove is not working, what's the best way to fix it and the best way to help the situation? To order a pizza, of course. But thank you very much for that support. And, of course, sir, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, LC39A. And I gotta say, thank you for the incredible support in supporting the stove fund. Hopefully we'll be able to get the stove fixed. There are some politics involved in getting that fixed a little bit, but hopefully it'll be fixed soon and we'll be able to get back to cooking. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on into the next one. But a massive, huge thanks to you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I saw someone say this feels true. Growing Bud said, it feels like both sides have turned into the Crips and the Bloods of the 90s. Doesn't it? Doesn't it? Because it's like they're the same. Like in anything that matters, they're the same. And and some people will never believe that. And some people will go, oh, you're one of those enlightened fence riders that feels really like snooty saying that. And no, that's not true. The thing is that they are the same. Like, look at their foreign policy approaches and tell me, are they that much different? You know, the last administration almost did nothing, but the current administration is doing nearly nothing, and it's just trying to force ceasefires everywhere, kind of like the last one was, but the last one wasn't as violent, well, really as aggressive with trying to get the ceasefires, but they still didn't do anything either. It's like they're the same. Like from where I'm seeing them right now in foreign policy, they are the same. And then you have the supporters of both sides acting like they're totally different. Like now that a new person has been elected and it's just a different face in the office, everything went from literally the pits of hell with like bubbling lava pits to now it's a nice little green meadow and the leprechauns riding the rainbow to the golden pot and everything just got better. And the truth is that it didn't. It's all the same. Like from our point, trust me, folks, we've been watching this for 6 months now. It's literally the same. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is that there's actually more wars now than there were 6 months ago. But beyond that, nothing else has changed. Not the approach that America takes, not our diplomatic solutions, or how hard the Department of State's working, or what our fixes are to these sorts of things. None of it's changed. It's all the same. And it's like that everywhere. Like literally everywhere. But I've been told that this is a rabbit hole. But it's a rabbit hole that I think is worth traveling through. But anyways, I hope that addresses that well. I hope that people see where I'm coming from here. But some people are always going to take offense because they are too far down they've drank too much of the Kool-Aid to see beyond what they think they support and to see that it's literally the same. And that's not to say it's literally the same. So, vote one way or the other. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm trying to say it's literally the same in the point that there needs to be some sort of a change. And the only way that change can be brought about is by y'all largely changing the way y'all think. It's not even about your votes anymore. It's about how y'all think. People can't think on both sides that it's that no war is worth fighting and we must avoid war at all costs for different reasons, but still come to the same answer that war must be avoided at all times. People need to probably understand we got something to fight for, because once y'all start to think that and that becomes the prevailing public mindset, the candidates of the next election are going to understand I can't be weak and spineless, or else these people might not vote for me even if I have a lot of super PAC and funding money. Like the country has to take it upon themselves. You are not sitting by like you would like to imagine as all of these people above you run the country and you're just simply someone wandering around. You are the machine machine, the driving engine of change in this country by what you think, what you do, how you spend your money, how you live your life, what you like, what you dislike. You are the very machine that keeps this country running every single day, the hundreds of millions of you. And if y'all start to change the way you think and what you think is acceptable and unacceptable, then you will change the very way this country is running itself. Y'all are the beginning of the change that actually does exist in this country. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, because once you start to understand that, and you start to operate on your own framework and start to understand that sometimes we have to do the dirty work to be able to live in the sunlight, if you want to call it that, then that's when the political system starts to change. And on both sides, they start to make a different approach or give different answers and different solutions to the problems that continue to plague the country these days. And neither side has a solution or answer to anymore. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next super chat here. This one goes to Marion Deemert, who puts in a $40 donation, a combined super chat of two of them. And thank you very much, Marion, for that very generous support, and we do appreciate that. And Marion said, I'm just glad you are anti-talking about the government. Oh my goodness. Sadly, I can't read that one right there, but they said hugs. I will say this, a general comment, not about partisanship, but just a general comment. Around the world, free speech is being eroded, just as a general theme. It seems like every government is trying to erode free speech. I'm not saying it's like some grand conspiracy or something. I'm not saying they're all like in cahoots, but it seems like people are forgetting the value of free speech. And the goofy part is, not only are the leaders eroding it, but they're also convincing the constituents to support eroding their own right to speak freely, which doesn't make sense at all. And they'll be doing it under the premise of, let's shut the other side up, so therefore let's take away their free speech, but also at the same time, that same group of people is too short-sighted to realize it's also taking away their free speech as well. You know, that's just, you know, at some level, I'm like, you know, it's almost deserved at some level because it's like stupidity to the extreme. But at the same time, though, it's going to affect all of us. So we can't let the stupid ones drag everybody down, or otherwise we'll all suffer. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with Matthew on that, but I'd also have to say that it's not a singular party issue. It's really more so an attack on the principles of free speech from every direction. I would say that it's actually from to make sure that I say this as neutrally as possible, the left and the right simultaneously. It really just depends on who's in charge, and they're the ones eroding free speech to one end or the other. So, you know, if you have someone like, you know, insert any candidate, left or right leaning, and you'll see that they will come in and they'll start saying these specific types of speech are unacceptable now, and then they get voted out, and then the next one comes in. So if it was a left-leaning candidate the first time, they're getting rid of certain elements of free speech, and then a right-leaning candidate comes in, doesn't reverse those last laws, and then also cramps down on other elements of free speech, and this cycle continues. And that's what it's been looking like in really every corner of the world these days for about the past few years while we've been covering news on this show. It's that every single person and every single party comes in and they start limiting free speech just a little bit more. And each of them is coming up to the solid marble pillar that is free speech with a chisel, and they're chipping out a little extra piece of it each time that they come into power. It doesn't matter which side it is, and both of them are whittling away at the two opposite ends of that pillar, and before long that thing's going to be coming down if that does not stop, and free speech will cease to exist as a pillar of our society and our culture. And that's,
how does people not see that? That's what I want to know. And this is something that is a universal problem, because I'll see all the political parties do this. All of them will hear something they don't like on the other side, and they'll say, "That's stupid. We ought to shut them up." Which when someone says we want to shut somebody up, that means we want to start taking away rights. That's what that's code words for, and both sides will do it. It's like, well, you do realize that it's not like rights for thee and not for me. It's going to be rights for us all being eroded. And I guess it's just being blind because they're angry. They get so pissed off at the other side. They get so blinded they don't even realize they're hurting their own like freedom. It's just stupid. Like it's so stupid. It almost feels like a waste of breath to even talk about it.
yeah, because you know you'll have people on both sides, like, and I've watched it. I mean, you know, like I'll tell y'all once again, I was very political up until 2020, and I turned 18 in 2020, and then I stopped being political because because also I had a little bit of personal experience in local politics, and I figured out how nasty and disingenuous the whole thing is, and I was like, you know what? I'm not really a big fan of this anymore, and you can generally see that both sides are actually the same once you try and get involved in it a little bit. You're like, wow, they're the same pretty much, and they will screw you over if they want to. So I've completely moved back and just started watching it from a third-party perspective, and you'll watch one party get in, which was the last party before this administration, and they start limiting free speech, and they limit it in a specific way. And to one side, that's acceptable. This is logical, and this has reasonable purposes for being done. This limiting of free speech in our direction for what we support, and then they get voted out. And then the current administration comes in. And then they come in and they don't reverse any of the free speech restrictions that the last administration made. Those are still on the books. But what they do is that they come in and then they go, okay, all the speech that the opposition that's not in my party is making, I don't like anymore, and I'm going to start limiting their ability to criticize or make any statements that we don't agree with, because those are absolutely ridiculous. And then the supporters of that administration start to say, well, these are completely illogical restrictions of free speech because of A, B, and C reason, and there are logical ends to this. And that's not the case. People have got to understand you have the right to say stuff that you don't agree with. Other people do. And you don't have the right to shut those people down. You just have the right to be able to disagree with them. If you don't like what they're saying, you can say something to counter what they're saying. Like if they say, I like A, B, and C thing, you have a right to say, well, I dislike A, B, and C thing. You don't have a right to go, they need to be shut down for saying that. What right does someone have to compel another that they can't speak their mind? That's something that I don't understand, because you see that everywhere now. You'll see Republicans or Democrats saying, I don't like what the other side is saying, and for these reasons we need to shut down their right to even say it, more so than saying I disagree with them and I would like to point out my logical points and standpoints that I think are better than theirs as to why they're wrong. You don't see that.
And what's the magic words? What's the magic words to make it sound a lot more acceptable to people? That's misinformation. We should shut that down. It's complete misinformation. Honestly, like you know who else said misinformation and like to really toss that term around a lot? The Soviets. They love to toss that around as well. The communists about, oh, that's misinformation. They are misinforming the public. Cut the phone lines, as the old man used to say. It's so goofy. If you put a good label on something, people will fall for it. They'll fall for it every single time. And if you label something misinformation now, that's a good reason to censor anything that you don't like.
Yeah, I would have to say so. I also saw someone say free speech does have a limit. It does, but that limit is pretty far out there compared to what's starting to be laid out these days. I mean, like just to be honest with you all, from our standpoint running the show, we are having to walk on eggshells a lot. We were already walking on eggshells under the prior administration because they had their specific things that they didn't like. And the general way that both of them are going about enforcing these restrictions on free speech is to work through non-governmental sources, because everyone knows that most public forums have moved into the internet, which means that they're generally controlled by private companies. So it's to put pressure on those private companies that we're going to start screwing y'all down if y'all don't start limiting speech the way we want it to be limited. And so the last administration, we were walking on eggshells and had to avoid certain things. We're still having to avoid certain things because of them. Those restrictions haven't lifted. And then the new administration comes in, and then they have us walking on a whole new set of eggshells along with the last one, because we're having to also dodge and weave the specific things that they don't want to have put out or said, because otherwise there could be consequences for us running the show. And I just find that to be un-American from every degree. It's not that we would even talk about that stuff. It's the fact that we can't. Like, it's not even the fact that we would exercise our right to speak about those specific topics, because they're domestic political topics. But the fact that it's even being limited to the point that we got to go, oh, we got to be careful to even throw out a simple joke about that, because that could come back to get us, and someone could try and get us for that. That's something that I find to be very un-American, because never in any other part of history, beyond the McCarthyist period of the 50s, would you ever have to walk on eggshells and go, I might be got by one side or the other for saying something they don't agree with. And that's not talking about society, coming at you and trying to cancel you or something. That's talking about more so the government trying to possibly prosecute you or harass you over saying specific things that they may not agree with. And that's just not the way the United States is supposed to exist. Like if you say something on a domestic political level, like on any topic, like I don't like this guy, like I don't like this politician for these reasons, or I don't like this party for these reasons, or I don't like this topic, whether it be something extremely divisive like abortion or gun control, or something even more mundane like public transportation infrastructure or education, you should have a right to be able to say whatever you want about any of those topics without feeling like the ruling party, whichever one it is going to come and try and crush you or harass you because you're making your point set about those particular topics and issues. That's something that is inherently core to our society and our American way of life. And I don't know why people are not really understanding and appreciating and respecting those kinds of rights that we have and publicly trying to protect them. Because as far as we are concerned in the public, it should be the understanding that any speech is generally acceptable, except for the ones that are generally threatening or violate some sorts of laws. For example, like saying, oh, I'm going to come and brain you, like as a threat to someone. That's obviously not free speech. You're threatening someone. But beyond that, if you want to talk about any kind of a topic or say something or criticize someone, that generally should understood to be something that you have a right to do. Well, there are exceptions to that as well. Like, for example, doxing people is something that is actually an invasion of privacy and has a whole bunch of other stuff going along with it. That's something that you generally cannot do. But if you sit there and say something like, for example, probably a good one to do would be making fun of a president, because a lot of people have been doing that recently under the prior president and the current one. You have a right to do that. You don't have a right, like, as a president, you don't really have a right to go around and try and threaten companies or sue them or something like that because they made fun of you. I mean, that's just kind of, that's what comes with the territory. People are going to make fun of you. Like, people make fun of us. I mean, people make fun of us, and that's just what we have to deal with. I mean, that we're a public figure. So
It's not allowed anymore.
That's not allowed anymore. Under the prior administration or the current one, it's not really allowed anymore. But you should be able to, because it's an extension of free speech. Of course, we have dealt with people who have not just conducted free speech and criticized us or made fun of us. We've dealt with people who actually tried to have us doxxed, threatened, harassed, and possibly even shot through false police reports and stuff like that. But generally, people have a right to criticize and make fun of other people, especially if they're public figures. There really is no way to limit that kind of speech. And so, let's see. And someone said, actually, we've always been that way in this country. Not really. Not really, because a lot of people like to say that, oh, there's always been limits to speech, but not limits like we have today. Because with social media, technically the forums of the public aren't even in the public anymore. They're run through private companies like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or, others. Look at your screen right now. And those companies do not have the same legal protections or rights to extend your freedom of speech to you. They actually can regulate it because it's a private company. It's not a public forum. You're operating through a private forum, so they can lay out their own rules and restrictions. And the government's starting to take advantage of that a good bit in the modern day because they understand that they can just put significant pressure or threats of bad actions resulting to these companies to make them enforce restrictions on free speech that would not be tolerated in any sort of a public setting. Like, for example, a public park or a sidewalk where you could say whatever you wanted to. And so that's something that I'd have to say is a bit of an issue these days. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that the best I can. But if you don't like what I'm saying, folks, make sure to vote for me for president in 2040 if you can. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next support here goes to LC39A once again. He's throwing in another whopping 100 Canadian donation.
Dang.
And thank you very much, good sir, for the second massive support of the night. And that is, of course, Canadian support from our viewer from Canada. And we do appreciate that very much once again. And the second one does not have a comment attached to it. But nonetheless, Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you amazingly for the support, LC39A, for helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are going to be moving on into the next one. But we thank you massively so much for that once again. Also, I saw some people say slander and libel are not protected by free speech. Technically, they aren't, but there is a little something out there that y'all may not know about, which is the fact that if you're a public figure, it is practically impossible by legal standards, both through the state and at the federal level, to be able to lay out any form of slander or libel cases. Because if you're a public figure that everybody knows about in the country, it's very hard to be able to prove that some random statement that someone made out there damaged or destroyed your reputation to the point that you are deserving of any kind of damages through a civil procedure as a result of that. A lot of y'all may not know about that. And that's usually why people who, are incredibly popular, it's really hard for them to sue anyone. That's why tabloids can say crazy stuff about them and legally are allowed to say nutty stuff about people. Like, so-and-so did this crazy thing, and it's not even true. They technically are legally allowed to do that because it's impossible for them to prove that any slander or libel actually posed any threat or damage to their credibility or their name or their reputation to be able to get a redress of grievances through the courts. So I think some people may not know that. And that's generally why you'll see that back in the day, presidents really didn't throw around this whole lawsuit thing everywhere, the threats of lawsuits or harassment or anything like that, because it was generally understood people could say whatever they wanted to. Now, there was one guy in early American history. He actually was, I believe, the second president of the United States, if I'm not mistaken, which was John Quincy Adams, or actually John Adams, I believe. But he actually did go around suing people left and right for criticizing him, and the Supreme Court actually put out a ruling. He actually passed an act. It was the Alien and Sedition Act, where you could pretty much harass anyone who put out any negative press about him. And the Supreme Court ruled that the Alien and Sedition Act was unconstitutional because citizens of the country had a right to be able to criticize the President of the United States, public officials, and such things as that. And that generally set out the legal precedent from that point forward that public figures really didn't have a legal redress of claims for people who were making false statements or allegations about them. So I hope
also, it's complicated for a president to sue a private citizen as the president because obviously they wield a lot of power just from having the position of the executive branch. So it's presumed that the courts are going to operate independently of that influence. But at the same time, though, the way it works in reality, it's like obviously you're going up against the U.S. president, who he wields a lot of power in the government. So is a court really going to be swayed by that? And that's up for debate. That's why typically presidents don't sue private citizens while they're holding the office, because that's usually considered legally complicated, at least from what I can gather.
And also, I saw someone say, let's see, Bay Arthur said, with nearly 500,000 subscribers and a nightly YouTube channel, are the enforcers now considered public figures? That would be up for a court to decide. Because if we sue, like let's say in a second you say something crazy and we hypothetically did sue you over that, you would have the legal defense in court that we are a public figure and therefore we really don't have a legal claim that your statements damaged or ruined our reputation enough that we have any sort of a redress against you. So you would actually have a defense of that in court. It wouldn't stop us from suing you, but the thing with that though is that with public figures like us, it's generally understood that we have an upper hand advantage because we can keep trying to drag that through the courts pretty much at that point to try and bankrupt whoever we're suing. And so that's generally where the weaponization of that comes in, is that technically you still can sue even if you're a public figure. It's just the fact that that might go on for so long that the attorney fees rack up so greatly that it might bankrupt you in the process, and therefore it's pretty much weaponizing that part of the legal system, or kind of a loophole of a sort, to pretty much suppress freedom of speech or to make people scared of openly criticizing or stating negative things about specific individuals. So I hope that addresses that somewhat well, at least with like a hypothetical on that, as to how that would work. Because technically nothing will ever stop us from suing people for saying bad things about us, slanderous, libelous claims, anything like that, if it's untrue. But still, you would have to prove in the courts that we are a public figure, and therefore your statements had no damage to our reputation or anything like that. So I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that,
Indeed.
we are...
Indeed.
Yes, indeed, sir, indeed. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Luke UK, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much to Luke for that support, and we do appreciate that very much. I did not see a comment attached, but we do appreciate that support. It does help to keep the channel running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for support, Luke UK, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But a massive thanks to you so much once again for throwing in the support without a comment.
Indeed. And our next one goes to Jocelyn White, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Josh, for that $20 support as well. And we appreciate that. And Josh said, thank you for the dedication and following your dreams. And I appreciate all the hard work you do to keep us informed.
Hey, and thank you so much for the kind words and the support. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't have been able to make the channel possible, Jocelyn White. And we wouldn't be able to keep following our dreams to try and turn this thing into a massive news network someday. But I do thank you incredibly for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to keep this thing rolling up until now and make this thing possible. So thank you so much once again. And also, I saw someone say the Enforcer can't run in 2040. I can. I'll be 37 by then. So I can run in 2040. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Old Warrior, yet another channel legend, and he puts in a 20. He said World War II radar was able to detect artillery. How bad are their armies to not have simple systems for their artillery batteries?
I actually would not know. I don't really know a lot about their counter battery radar systems that they may have available, but I'd assume the Cambodians have none. I'd assume that it's even hard pressed for them to have any radars at all beyond the ones for their medium range air defense that they have in limited numbers provided by the Chinese. So I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Steve, who puts in a 20. And thank you, Steve, as well. He said, I will be as apolitical as I can when I say this. When politics is more about falling in line than saying and doing what is right, you know something is rotten in the system. Yeah, honestly, you're right. If people decide to basically abandon their oath of office, and everybody has an oath to uphold the Constitution, it doesn't matter if it's inconvenient for you to uphold it at the time. You have to uphold it if you're holding public office. So when people decide we're going to put that aside to appease one man, that becomes a problem. And honestly, that's becoming not a universal truth anymore. That's becoming an opinion. So I'll say that's my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
You better be careful about that. Allegedly, make sure to say allegedly. But beyond that, I would have to say that I would have to agree. I mean, there was already someone in the chat, someone called Carol, saying you guys are getting too political. I know y'all may not think you're bashing the president, but you are. And it's just crazy how people think like that, because it's like that person right there is pretty much proving what you're saying is true. If they listened at all, and this proves that people who are political don't listen like them, that if they listened at all, they would have heard that I also criticized the prior president in the same breath that I criticized the current president's position on foreign policy. And their ears shut off as soon as I start to criticize someone who is not in their party. So in their terms, a Democrat. As soon as I start to criticize a Democrat, they don't hear that. They only hear the part where I'm criticizing the Republican, and then they go, "Oh, he's clearly political." Because you can't criticize my guy. You can only criticize the other side, because my side's clearly perfect and doesn't do anything wrong, and everything they do is always justifiable, but the other side's a demon and does everything wrong. And it's just crazy with that, because back before this current guy became the president and the last guy was the president, it was like that with everyone who was a Democrat. They would shut off as soon as we started to criticize any Republican, they would completely shut off. But as soon as we started to criticize who was in charge, who was a Democrat, then they'd immediately go, "Oh my God, you are an absolute bastard," and no reason at all. No reason at all. It's that my side is right, and no matter what, I'm going to stick with my guns. And it doesn't matter if you have a point or not or anything. And we don't even exercise that on domestic issues at all, because that's not our topic. We don't talk about anything going on inside the country. The border, abortion, gun rights, nothing. We have no opinions on that. I'm keeping it that way. We're never going to have opinion on those topics, because those are hills to die on just for the purpose of dying on them. Is there a right answer in either direction? In my honest opinion, at least historically, no. So it's like, people just get on those hills and they fight and die on them for what end? I don't even know. But on foreign policy, there are clear hills to fight and die for. And people want to make it sound like, oh, okay, well, my president did this, and clearly, by the logical points you just laid out, it sounds like it makes sense based off of historical precedent of how these sorts of ceasefires worked, or how they're working, or what the last administration did that was Democrat, or the current one that's Republican, and both of them did practically the same thing, and both of them did, in my opinion, poorly doing the same thing. It doesn't matter, because you criticize my guy now, and when my guy's doing it, it's justifiable. But when the other guy's doing it, it's not justifiable. And it just makes no sense with that. It's kind of like how Because if y'all believed it or not, we actually did watch the presidential debates. Well, not the presidential debates, but the debates that were going on leading up to the election in 2024. And I remember one person, you'll remember this, Matthew, was the interview, the debate that was happening with Anderson Cooper. And there was a specific person, and they said, so wait a minute, when they did it, it was wrong, but when you do it, it's right. And they said, yep, exactly. And that's how it works nowadays. That's literally how it works. When we do the very same thing, it's justified. But when the other side does the same thing that we did, it's now unjustified. In diplomacy, that's how we act against other countries. That's not how we're supposed to be acting with each other inside of this country. So
We're supposed to go easy on each other here. We're not each other's enemies, but it seems like, half the country is an enemy of the other. So, who's the president that said a house divided cannot stand? What was that? Lincoln that said that?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was right. But he lived in a different period of time, I'm afraid.
Also, someone just said, you belittle the present in his personal decisions more so than the last. I don't know where that comes from, because literally for the past 3 years, before this guy became the president, we were making fun of the last president and the way he even talked. Like, we would make voices of him and criticize him on air often for the foreign policy decisions that he was making that we believed were weak. And we would openly say, the prior president, he's weak, he's doing A, B, and C decision. Where is he even? We don't even know. Because he never showed up anywhere. He hardly did anything in foreign policy. He hardly said anything in foreign policy. So we would criticize it openly because that was an issue, and we didn't like that, and it looked weak. And so, and of course, folks like you lean towards the left or the right. So when we criticize someone that you equally agree with the criticism about, that just goes in one ear, out the other. As soon as we start to criticize your guy, it hurts you deeply, like it's a personal insult to you. And it's not. This is business. I'll be honest with you, if I had the current president or the former president working for me, and this was what my business was about, was foreign policy, I'd have them fired because they would make for poor Secretary of States. That would be the honest truth. Neither of them have done well. I would say that really anyone has done better than the current administration and the last administration in foreign policy. Even administrations of the early 2000s did better than this. And when they came into office, everyone thought it couldn't get worse. And that's saying a lot these days. That's the truth of it. And some people just don't understand that. And they never will. Like, the folks who say that kind of stuff, like, you're criticizing the current president more than the last one. You'll never get it. We criticize the last one as much as we did the current one, but because you were so adamant that your side is right, the Democrats are the best, or the Republicans are the best, you can't hear it when we equally criticize both sides, because the only time you pay attention is when we start to criticize your side, because then you want to take personal offense to that and make it into the age-old tradition of modern politics, which is getting into the debate and going, look at you weak bitch, and then going off on someone. And there's no logic at all to it. It's just about trying to beat someone down simply because they brought up a criticism, so that way you could feel like you won and you're right and you feel better about it. And it doesn't achieve anything, and the country keeps on going down the path it's going down, which isn't a good one for foreign policy. But damn it, you were right in that argument, and that's all that mattered. It doesn't matter if the country is going to collapse because our foreign policy is so bad and we're going to end up becoming a minor economic and military power in the world. That doesn't matter. It matters that you won that argument. And while both presidents are doing the same thing in foreign policy, at least you feel good. At least you feel good. Prices are rising on everything because the trade's becoming difficult to pull off. Not only that, the petroleum fields of the Middle East are being threatened, which has a lot to do with oil prices globally. And it was like that under the last administration and the current one. But damn it, my guy said it's better than ever, so it's got to be better than ever. I remember, folks, in the last administration, rounding it out in 2024, our country started to slip into a slight recession. And it was starting to get there because the books had been cooked for the years prior because of the whole economic turmoil that you all know of in 2020, 2021. So it was finally starting to show that the books were they'd been cooked long enough and the effects were starting to hit. So, no fault of that, had to do what they had to do at the time. But beyond that, it started to hit and we were like, it's it's been a little bit tough. And they were like, well, wait a minute. No, our president said it's better than ever. The economy's never been healthier. And you're wrong, because he said it and it's better. And it's like that with this president as well, because I'll just be honest with you, just speaking on the economic side of things, nothing's getting cheaper. I mean, we're buying groceries, we buy gas. It's the same price, or it's getting slightly more expensive now than it was last. So it's on an upward hike still, through both of them. And then it's, oh, well, my guy says it's better than ever now, so it's got to be better. Nothing to improve on. Like, I know the prices are rising. Nothing to improve on, though. And that's what stops any kind of actual progress from being made, is that people won't pull their heads out of the sand and go, well, actually, it wasn't going well under the last one or the current one, so, we can need to start putting some political, maybe some political pressure out there on everyone involved to try and get the situation fixed, or at least put them on the burner a little bit to where they feel like they have to get it fixed. Or something like that. But anyways, with that, not wanting to get political here, just trying to keep it neutral and trying to keep it honest around here. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to LC39A, who puts in a $100 donation yet again, the third of the night. And a huge shout out to you, LC39A, for that massive support tonight. We sincerely do appreciate that. He said, in my 81 years of life, I voted for both parties. Neither has a monopoly on good ideas or bad ideas. And I agree with you. Like, I'm just a neutral person, me personally. I used to not be neutral. I'll be totally transparent. But the more I've seen, the more I've realized, okay, there's one big club, we're not in it, and we're being played. That's the way I look at it. I know that's kind of cynical, but that's just the way I view it. And some people are going to be like, oh, he's too young, he doesn't really understand that one side's right or the other side's right. I just don't buy it. But I'm not going to get any deeper than that, though. I'm going to get political if I keep going deeper than that. But I agree with you. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much for the support, LC39A. And I'd have to say that's probably the best approach. No side has the right answers. Really, honestly, the truth is that on a lot of moral standpoints, there is no right answer. Like, that's also something that's a little bit shocking to people. It's up to your personal opinion. And that's something a lot of people don't get. And so I generally think, like, as far as anything that comes up to a moral decision, it's a pretty laissez-faire thing, to each their own. They, whoever wants what gets what. I personally think that the federal government shouldn't be involved in moral policing. That ought to be right left to the states. But beyond that, I'd also have to say that as far as foreign policy goes, I think we should vote for whoever has the best idea. And that doesn't mean that, this party is always going to have the best idea every time. Neither the current one nor the last one. It really depends on a case-by-case basis. I'd be honest with you, neither of them right now have a good answer for foreign policy. So I think America needs to start changing the way it's thinking, so that way the political parties will start to change the way that they think. So that way we can actually get a fresh round of ideas out there on both party sides, and then see who has a better answer to the situations we see today at that point. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you so much for that incredibly massive support. Once again, LC39A, huge support tonight from you, and we massively thank you for that. And with that, it's time for us to get on into the next ones. Also, by the way, folks, I'm going to cut down the rabbit holes a little bit, because we do have a couple of dozen super chats left, and we want to make sure to get to each and every one of them tonight and give them a good amount of time each, and then also get to some live chats. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Larry Shaw, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Larry, for that support. He said, I'm glad to hear you guys get into the facts about U.S. foreign policy. And this has nothing to do with politics. The U.S. is just looking weak and disorganized. And that's true, Larry. We can separate the domestic partisan politics from the complete analysis of U.S. foreign policy. Like, I don't think many people understand that anymore. Just because you are criticizing one aspect of U.S. policy, which is, in our case, foreign policy, that doesn't mean you're criticizing or saying that the president is a piece of crap or something like that. That's not what we're saying. We may have our own personal opinions, but we're not espousing them here on the air. We're simply discussing the U.S. foreign policy. But I agree. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I'd have to thank you for the support as well, Larry Shaw. I'd have to definitely agree with that, because as far as foreign policy has gone, for the whole 3.5 years we've been on this channel, I would surmise it as weak and disorganized and sloppy. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support. Hope that does address that well. And for the political people, get it through your heads. I just said the last 3.5 years. Your guy has not been president for the last 3.5 years. So make sure to understand that before you start criticizing me about, you're getting political. Because I just criticized both political parties, both political administrations in one fell swoop with that statement. So don't sit there and discredit the other part. I just said both of them. You want to make that clear. But with that, a big thanks to you so much for the support, Larry Shaw. I thank you massively for that once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Glock Who's There, LSA, who put in a $20 donation and said LSA. And we also had a 20 from WinTube. And they did not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Mr. Glock, and also WinTube for that support. And we do appreciate that. As of course, it does help keep the channel running. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank both of y'all for the support, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. So an LSA to Glock Who's There, and a big thanks to WinTube for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to let's see, I can't say it. I want to say it, but I can't say it. This one goes to
Don.
Say what?
This one goes to Don.
This one goes to Don Epstein, who puts in a 20. He said Chris's mom's on the list.
Oh, what list? What list? What are you talking about? What are you, a lisp? A lisp? I've never heard of this word. Let me go pull it up. Let's see. Doesn't exist. See? That thing you're talking about doesn't exist. Listen to the pronunciation.
Lisp.
Totally different than what you
Yes.
said. Excuse me, thanks. It's a lisp. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Destroyed. Destroyed.
Pure facts dictionary. Going to the Webster's for this one. Excuse me, facts. Pure words. Pronunciation. Lisp.
Excuse me. I destroyed the left wing of this plane so hard the NTSB had to conduct an investigation. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks. You're wrong. Thanks. By the way, I'm not even relevant anymore, but I'm going to keep forcing myself into the conversation. Thanks. Get on the list. The list. Shit. I wasn't supposed to say that. There's no such thing as a list. A lisp. Thanks. Yep. Thanks. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Andrew Barbaro, who puts in a 20. He said, Enforcer, tell us how you really feel, please. LSA. And don't encourage him, Andrew, for that. Don't encourage him, please. We can't have him getting too deep on politics.
Please.
But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I thank you for the support. And I have to say that I feel fine. I saw some people saying he must be hungry. No, I'm actually full tonight. I'm actually full. I had a full plate of pizza tonight. We actually exercised the pizza fund. And so I've got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address it the best I can. And before we move on to the next one, no worries, Carol. It's just that I like to divorce myself from domestic politics and being partisan as much as possible. And whenever people try and insinuate that I'm partisan, I take issue to it. So if my response ever seemed like I was offended, it's not that I was offended with you personally. It's more so that I'm offended by the point, more so, or the insinuation that I may be a political hag, as someone put it, not a hack. I saw someone call us a hag just a second ago. I was like, I think
got
it's
called
a
a hag.
Yeah, I think it's a hack. I think you're supposed to be called like a something political hack, not a hag. I've never heard of a hag. And I got to be honest with y'all, there are a lot of people up there in Washington whose subject matter could be described as haggish. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the Potato Eater, who puts in a 20, who said, you guys are amazing, and thank you for the kind words. He said, best channel and best news channels out there, and stay blessed, y'all. LSA for life.
And we will, the Potato Eater. I thank you massively for the kind words, and thank you for saying that's the best channel out there. We try our best, and thank you for the support, and helping this channel to keep on running. And oh, by the way, we hit 478,000 subscribers today. Yippee! Without the fine China!
Look at that. Whoa, Jack. We
Whoa!
hit 478,000 subscribers on the hills with Xi Jinping. Oh, thank you so much.
Well, look, Jack, I got to be honest with you. Look, we never thought we'd hit 500,000. That's unreal. Really. Look, Jack, my legs, they turn blonde in the sun. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next support here goes to none other than Randy Spots. And Randy puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, good sir, as well, for that support. He said, absolutely no question. And he said, I've enjoyed this great channel for a long time, and it's about time that I chip in.
And I thank you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying this channel for such a long time, and thank you for chipping in a little bit. Nobody has to. Like you don't ever have to feel compelled to support, but we are massively thankful to folks like you who do support. You help to make the channel possible for everyone when y'all support on the nights y'all do. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. So a massive thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Don Epstein, who puts in the 20. Thank you very much, good sir, once again for that support. Oh man, I tell you what, I can't
It's
really
a minefield. Like
he said, my full name is Donald Duck. Quack, quack. I will be running in 2028.
Oh
with,
no! Don't read that. No,
Huh?
no, dude. He's free now. He's free. We can't read that.
Oh, he's free. Oh, wait a minute. He's free. What do you mean he's free?
He's free. He's not like being punished. He's free.
They let him out?
I think. Let me check.
Are you sure about that?
Hold up. Let me check.
They didn't let him out.
They did.
They did?
It looks. Oh, wait a minute. He was found guilty of a couple of things. We're safe. You can read it. Like we're safe. You can read it. Please proceed.
He said he's going to be running in 2028 with P. Diddy. P. Diddy 2028. That's in his words, not mine.
By the way, folks, I just wanted to say to P. Diddy's goons, I don't want to wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy, house covered in baby oil. Like, we're totally fine. We'll just skip that part. So I just want to make that clear. We have no issues or ill will towards P. Diddy, and we do not want to wake up feeling like him. So keep going, Matthew.
How'd they call him that?
I don't know. I think it was the whole thing of the freak-offs, and that's where you got the designation P in front of the Diddy, and also the.
I don't think there's any version of the name that really rings confidence in anybody. Puff Daddy, P Diddy.
The names originated from the freak-offs, dude. Like I promise you, they had to, because it's like, how the hell do you get these weird names?
I like it when you're scrambling and scraping for shit. I mean, come on,
Bruh, dude, he would sit there, man. Bruh, he's in prison right now, and they're saying someone drops his soap in the shower. He's in there. Go ahead, pick it up. Like it's like no. It's like no. Like
oh, man, there's somebody dropped the soap in there. He said, "I like it when you're scrambling and scraping for shit."
Bro, no, man, dude. Honestly, man, with him, he might sit there like when you drop the soap and you just turn around and see him there, looking all creepy and shit because he just looks creepy. And he's like, "Don't worry, I'll pick it up for you." Wink. It's like, it's like, bro, scary shit. Like, honestly, that guy gives me nightmares. Also, why were his eyes so close together on his face? Like, have y'all looked at that? It's almost like he was born a cyclops, nearly, like with the eye spacing. I would pull up a picture of him, but I'm scared, he'll probably call from prison and be like, get him copyrighted because we own the rights or something. So we won't show a picture of him, but still, he just looks creepy. Like, I honestly don't know how people liked him, because I always found the guy to be a little off-putting. I didn't really know how to put a finger on it, but he sure as hell put a finger on it, and then he went to prison for it. So, we have that to work with. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Well, wait a minute, we hadn't even got done with this one. We hadn't even got,
man, I got done with it. Okay. That's all I could read.
I thank you, Don Epstein, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to, let's see here. Also, I scared the hell out of some people with my impression. I'm sorry. But moving on here to our next one. This one goes to Just a Plumber, who blitz in a 10. And so keep on enforcing enforcers.
Hey, we will keep on enforcing Just a Plumber. And I got to thank you for being Just a Plumber, because you serve a vital role in this country. So huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the Comfort Zone, who puts in a 10. And they said, from the man watching on the CRT. Oh, hey, look.
It's that guy!
You're the one I retweeted today. I actually had to quote tweet that post you put up there. That was so cool. I had to show the enforcer. I was literally showing the enforcer on the phone the moment I saw that you tagged us in that. I was like, look at this. This guy's got a CRTV television.
Look at this.
They're sitting here playing the stream off. But look at that. That is the coolest thing. Seriously, I actually meant the post I put out. That was the coolest thing I've seen in a while. It's like a portable CRT television that's like an old school type. Super cool looking. It's like a Fallout era thing right there. I like that.
This was sick, by the way. I was actually blown away with that as well today, the comfort zone. I gotta thank you for supporting the channel tonight and reaching out to us because I wanted to personally say this is the hardest way to watch the Enforcer channel, both in like the metaphorical way and also the literal way. This is the hardest thing we've ever seen of someone watching the Enforcer channel. It's like the apocalypse has happened for you and you're watching it the best way you can. It's sick, honestly. I got to thank you so much for the support.
This is what they, when they have like the shows that show like what happens after the world gets like nuked into oblivion and there's like rubble all over the place and there's no buildings left standing. You'll see like a perfectly fine CRT television portable one just like that sitting on top of the rubble playing like an old newsreel or something like on the like ending credits of a movie.
Yeah, it's so cool. This is actually sick. And I gotta thank you, The Comfort Zone, for reaching out to us tonight and supporting this channel. And also, thank you so much for supporting the channel as well. Not only did you give us something that was so cool we had to repost it today on Twitter, but you also supported the channel tonight. We're massively appreciative of that, and I gotta thank you incredibly for that. So I hope that does address that well. Huge thanks to you once again, and really cool to see, by the way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Luke UK, who puts in a 10. And Luke said, I just want to say thank you for what you do. It's taken me ages to figure out how to do a super chat. And LSA.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying what we do, because actually by your support, you're helping us to do it. So I got to thank you incredibly once again, and thank you for being a longtime viewer and enjoying the channel enough you would go out of your way to support it. It means a whole lot to us, because it helps us to pay our bills, eat, and keep living, and keep doing this. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 10. And he said, many of the conflicts around the world are rooted in cultural and religious differences, but economic and natural resources seem to be the driving factor, and the enforcers can expound upon it in LSA. Honestly, I think most of them today, except for a handful of exceptions, are cultural and religious wars. Now, one thing I will say, if a war happens in Europe, typically it's over something tangible, most likely. It's something like natural resources or economic. It typically, like, for example, the Ukraine-Russia war, well, I say that, but at the same time, though, a lot of people argue that Putin does have a personal ambition because his family fought in the region, and maybe he wants to go in there for some like personal legacy reasons or something. That's also a theory. Whatever the case is, he's illegally invaded Ukraine. That's the bottom line. But I don't know. Like, actually, I take that back now that I say that. But Enforcer, what do you say?
I would have to say that most wars are actually rooted more so in the resource side of things, whether it be economic or actual raw, tangible resources, or strategic purposes. But usually the guise of religion or ideology or culture is generally the prevailing theme. Because look at the... I hate to always bring every example back to World War II and specifically the Nazis as like the failed state to give an example of, but if you look at the Nazi Germans, their whole ideology existed off of more so a material and resource guided purpose, but they also had this heavy overture of this sort of a cultural aspect to it that made it look like it was more so cultural than resource based. Because if you look at the Mustache Man's guiding reason for the war, it was this autarky economic principle of Lebensraum, but everything else was layered over it so that way the public would think, oh, it's a just war. Because if you told someone we're invading some land to get some extra farms, they'd be like, what? I'm not fighting for that. And if you sit there and tell them, oh, it's because, of all these stupid reasons, then you can kind of get people a little bit more on board. It's kind of like the same thing in the Middle East, because Iran is not at all, just to make this a little bit clear to everyone, not at all caring really more so about the religious side of things. The religious thing is the guys that they use to get a whole bunch of idiots to fight for them. The real thing is that they want to be the regional powerhouse of the Middle East. That's where everything comes from. Because if you notice, they aren't friends with other Muslims. They beef with the Saudis heavily because they're technically a different sect of Islam. But the truth is that Saudi Arabia is a major oil producer in the region, like Iran. And for that reason, because they don't really align with the Iranians, they're a rival in the region that has to be dealt with. And if you look at any other groups within the area, it's always not like religion and cultural reasons is kind of what they'll say to get people on board with it in the public. But the reality is that there's always something more tangible and material and strategic behind all of these wars. Like the one between Thailand and Cambodia, it has nothing to do with that temple. that temple has hardly anything to do with it. It's more so the fact that Thailand has to defend itself against the Cambodians because the Cambodians are trying to attract tourism. It's a tangible resource item. And these Buddhist temples, which hardly are even used anymore in this region, are very big tourist attractions. So if the Cambodians control it, it's a little bit of an extra money maker. It has nothing to do with the religious side of things. But the Thai also want that as well because they're also a big tourist country. So they want to be able to attract tourists and have that extra little attraction to bring people in for. And so that's really what the underlying part of this conflict is. It really, if boiled down, it's a war about the resource of tourism dollars more so than anything else. Probably the best way that we could explain it. So I would have to say that would generally be the kind of answer I could give because the cultural and religious side of things always is more so of a guise to get a more ignorant populace involved in something. Because if you told someone in the Islamic Republic of Iran, we are fighting in the Middle East and supporting all of these terrorist groups to destabilize, weaken, and destroy governments within this area to either rebuild them into our interests or to directly take control of these areas so that way we can be the uncontested controller of all of the oil fields in the Middle East, which will give us a great deal of economic power and control over a large amount of the world and also allow us to be an unrivaled powerhouse that will be able to set the trends for ourselves and bring a great deal of prosperity to our country. A lot of people are not going to be able to wrap their head around that, and they're going to go, what? But if you sit there and take something they know, which a lot of people in Iran are Islamic, and you sit there and go, we are conducting a holy jihad against these little people that disagree with us around the world, and we're gonna go to war, and we're just gonna start fighting these people and kill them because they're different than us. And then a lot of people go, yeah, I agree with that, yeah, because that's a lot easier to get people's heads wrapped around than some sort of a greater strategic grand scheme picture. And you can even see that in America, because a lot of people don't get it when we go and fight a war for those abstract reasons. Like we go to Iraq because of the oil. People are like, oh, why would we fight over oil? And they don't even understand the major strategic big picture purpose of doing something like that. But I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. But that would actually be my 2 cents on it, Andrew Honeycutt. I think that religious and cultural explanations or reasons for conflicts are always more so just a much easier to explain veil to more complex issues that lie under the surface. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Hoodoo, Texas, who puts in a 10. He said, the U.S. needs to stay out of Southeast Asia ground wars, even as a peacemaker. We tried that once and it did not go well, and Southeast Asia is a third rail, and the U.S. diplomacy should not be involved.
I would generally agree. I think that it's fine for us to say that we diplomatically support the Thai, but I really would also agree this isn't necessarily a fight that we have to fight, and it's also not an incredibly important area, at least for now, at least with Thailand and Cambodia being involved as the actors. So I would generally agree with that for the most part. So a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the Martian, who puts in a 10. And the Martian said, we have another 3 years of the strategy.
Possibly. It might change though. It might just be seen that this doesn't work and maybe public opinion starts to change. And so we might not have 3 years of it. It might just be like another year, maybe, or less. But hopefully we can only hope for better. So I always like to try and keep a little optimistic, about what the future may bring, but still a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to David Croton, who puts in a 10. He said, true that, and check mark.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, David Crowden, and helping this channel to keep on running and agreeing. And so a big thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And we got a 10 from Ben Bacon Bits. And he said, I've been out of Russian defense systems since the late 90s. You've been out. You ran out, eh? He said, but what happened to the MiGs they had? Were they all taken out early on or replaced by the SUs?
They both sides have MiGs. It's just that because MiGs are not really a multi-role aircraft in the modern sense, they're usually relegated to deep rear line service or air interdiction roles. So we rarely ever get to see them, if at all. And the Russians, I believe, don't even fly their MiG-29s. They still have a lot of them on paper. It's just that we never see them in action at any point. So they have them. It's just that they prefer not to use them because they don't really fit the environment of the modern war anymore. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Eric, who puts in a 10. And Eric said, this is the best war news program ever. And thanks for the service. And FYI, my family's in Fruithurst, Alabama.
right, that's really cool, and I got to thank you for the kind words, Eric. And that's neat to know they're in Fruithurst, Alabama. Where in the world is Fruithurst, Alabama? Oh, it's way out here near the Georgia border. That's why I don't know where they are, because I've never been out in this area of Alabama much. I've been to Anniston and Oxford a little bit, but Fruithurst, never been through here. But that's actually pretty cool, and I got to thank you for the support and sharing that with us, and also throwing in some kind words and making this channel possible tonight. So with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jack Ragnarsson, who puts in a 10. And Jack said, have you seen the movie Don't Look Up? It's very realistic about how the government functions, LOL. Honestly, I feel like we're living that movie.
I thank you for the support. I'd have to say I haven't seen that movie, but one movie I have seen that was political was the movie Nixon, which actually had the guy, I forgot his name, the actor. So y'all might not be able to tell, but I'm not because he's of a certain political affiliation, but because of his foreign policy and the genius of his foreign policy. I'm actually a big respecter of Nixon. That's not supposed to be political. That's just more sort of a foreign policy thing. But I watched the movie Nixon. It was about the Watergate scandal, and it was very, very decent actually on laying out how the political mechanisms worked through the Watergate scandal. I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good, and it kind of like also laid out like the life of Nixon, which was also very interesting. But anyways. With that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Luke UK, who puts in a 10 once again. He said, do you know how many wars are currently popping off around the world today?
Oh, geez. Let me try and count them. Venezuela, that's one. That's technically two. So 3, 4, 5. There's some more in Africa. I just can't think of them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Well, that one's not going on right now. 11. About 11, I think. It might be a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more than that because I can't remember some of the specific wars that I'm thinking of. Well, actually, no, it's 12 because the Libyan civil war is still going on. So it's technically 12 at the moment, which is quite a lot for any given year. So the answer, like many people are giving, it's too many, but it's about 12 or a little bit over that. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Danny B once again. And Danny said, Chef Danny again, and what if I fly you out to Colorado for a day or two to do the Enforcer Matt cooking video and take the Enforcer to the Georgetown Railroad? That's a very generous offer, Danny. Thank you very much for that. Now, I will say this. That is a long way to go from where we're at. But I do want to say thank you for that offer. That's very generous. I think it'd probably be a lot easier to do that when we get out to Salt Lake City out west. It'd probably be a lot easier to get to Denver at that rate to do something like that. So I think it might be better to do it then, actually. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree with Matthew on that, but I got to thank you for the incredibly kind offer, Danny B. And we might try and take you up one day on that really nice offer. So a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Joshua A, who puts in a 5. He said, LSA, my weekly support, and I love the program.
Hey, and thank you so much for support, Joshua A. And thank you for loving the program. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Craig from Craigslist, who puts in a 5. He said, has the armed group made any public statements? It's kind of odd they don't seem to be pushing a message for the people to rally behind in Iran.
We haven't heard of any public statements from them. So yeah, it's a little bit weird, but generally those groups aren't really that vocal. And generally, if they're vocal, it's only on a local level. But a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wes of Star Army, who puts in a 5. He said, thanks for the coverage of today's spicy world from the Star Army Forum. And with that, Dono, we're on to the next one. And what say you, Enforcer?
You already know what we're about to say. But a massive thanks to you for the support, and thank you for enjoying our coverage. We try our best, and I'm glad to know a lot of people have nothing but raving reviews about our show. It shows in our like rates. Our like rates are like up at 97 and 98% most times, which is really hard to get, actually, so we're really proud about that. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is a $5 support from Baron, who's a really good kid. He's a good kid. And Baron said, did Thailand not attack Cambodia in 2008 over Cambodia designating a temple that is on their land as a World Heritage Site? This is a long-going issue.
I did hear about that. That is true, and that's why in 2009, the international court did deem that temple was Cambodia's. But then the Thai didn't accept that, so they conducted legal warfare, or a lawfare, as it's called, and then that's what led the Cambodians to plant the mine about a decade and a half later on that path that started the whole war that we're seeing right now. So technically, they did. But still, in the present day, at the moment, the Cambodians are the aggressors because they moved it from the legal warfare arena, which is non-violent, into a physical, violent armed conflict by blowing up that Thai soldier. So I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bungus, who puts in the 5. He said, I'd say that our current foreign is hilarious if it wasn't so sad.
Yeah, I would say for the past 3.5 years, I'd agree. I thank you so much for the support, though, and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Brian Gonzalez, who says, pro tip, choosing a side in a foreign conflict gains 1 ally and 1 enemy, and forcing a ceasefire gains you 2 enemies. Doing nothing is the true neutral.
That's actually pretty good assessment right there, Brian. I have to agree with that. And so a huge thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Andrew Honeycutt, who said Pax Romana, Pax Britannica, Pax Americana are the new Axis powers trying to disrupt this historical pattern in an effort to achieve parity.
Possibly so, actually. I think we may see at some point a Pax. I don't even know what the Chinese would be called in Latin, so unfortunately I wouldn't be able to say. But I think that they are trying to achieve that and become the major superpower of the globe, and largely the one leading the world stage. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. I thank you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ivuk, who puts into 5. He said, I love the beautiful news review, even if I have to get up early. And greetings from Poland.
And a big greetings to Poland, and thank you for watching, and also getting up really, really early to watch all the way from Poland. You're getting up at like 3 in the morning if you're watching from the start. So I got to thank you massively for the kind words and the support, because folks like you from the amazing country of Poland help this channel to keep running and to make it possible. So a massive thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Braden Bartholomew, who puts in a 5. He said, hello, I just want to support y'all. And don't read this first part in stream. Make sure you check spam box for email. And I will. And LSA, love what you do.
And thank you so much for the kind words and the support. And we will check our email here, most likely after the stream. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And a big shout out to Brian Justin and Plazoth for each putting in a $4 donation, and thank you very much both for that support. We also have a 2 from LSA Sergeant Figment, and he said, LSA, hit the like button, that's an order.
Hey, and hit the like button, folks. That is in order. We've actually gotten up to 3,800 likes tonight, which is really good. And hopefully, we'll be able to make it up even higher. So, massive thanks to you so much once again for support, LSA Sergeant Figment. And thank you for being the LSA Sergeant Figment. So, huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And honestly, I put in the chat something about we ought to do an enforcer tour one day. As I'm seeing one of our viewers from Thailand is like, oh, I need y'all to come by and see the place and stuff like that. Danny B wants us to come by Colorado. It seems like everybody wants us to stop through everywhere. Honestly, we'd probably go broke doing an enforcer tour. We'd probably be dirt broke before it was over with. But that would be cool though. Like honestly, we'd have to do a worldwide tour. We'd have to get on like an old plane or something like that, like the Spruce Goose, and go around and see different places and stuff like that. That might be pretty neat. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to $2 Garage, who puts in a 2. And it says, from the era of emissions. What are those?
I don't even know. $2 Garage, I have no clue. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Randy Smith, who puts in a 2 and says, what did you all think of that new South Park?
What South Park? I don't think I've personally seen it. Well, I do thank you for the support, though, and unfortunately, I'll have to circle back on that one. But with that, we are on to the next one.
I don't know what that is. That's South Park. I don't know what that is. What a goofy show. I don't know what that is. Is it a show? But anyways, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to Derek Pruce, who puts in a 2. He said, a great show every night. Take a question from that chat.
And we will make sure to, Dirk. And I thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. So what do we got, Matthew, for a live chat?
And this one goes to Tiger, who said, "Do you honestly think World War III will start within the next 2 years?"
I would say within the next 6, because I don't want the timetable to be too short. Usually, longer timetables are a little bit better for those sorts of predictions. So I'd say within the next 6 years. And if we make it through the next 6 years and a world war doesn't happen, we've toughed it out and we made it. If a world war happens, then it was going to happen, and there wasn't really a lot that we could do to avoid it. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again, Dirk, for sponsoring a live chat and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, someone said, "Is this an AI thing?" LOL. Let me know what type of AI is out there talking about riding the Spruce Goose and going on a worldwide tour. I've never heard AI say that before. But anyways, moving on to our next one. This one goes to Cody Fritz, who puts in a 2. And he said, "Thailand has a huge tourist economy. Guess the biggest."
I would guess the biggest amount of tourists going to Thailand are Americans, I'd assume. Let's see. Thailand tourism by country. Let's see. Thailand receives 39.8 million international tourists. Damn, that's actually a lot. Let's see. Damn, dude, that's insane, actually. Because if y'all don't know, like, some of the biggest tourist countries on Earth, I believe, like, France, get about 60 million tourists a year. Thailand's getting 40, which is huge. Like, that's a massive tourism industry. So let's see if they break it down by country. Let's see here. Which country? Oh, actually, the country that visited the most was actually China. Actually, America doesn't show up on the... Actually, America shows up with about 1.03 million tourists a year, right behind Japan at 1.06 million. So, actually, we don't make up a lot of tourism in Thailand. Actually, it's the Chinese who make up the biggest part. So that's actually interesting right there. Very, very interesting. Let's see. Let me do this really quickly. Tourism by country map. Hopefully I can get this a number for all of y'all, because this is actually what number of tourists by every country. Why don't they have that? Why don't they have that? So to show y'all where tourism happens, at least in terms of dollars spent, because apparently they don't have numbers, this is the World Tourism Map, and you can actually see that America makes a lot of money off of tourism. We're actually one of the biggest. We make $211 billion per year off of international tourism. That's wild. The European countries also make a good deal. But if you look at Thailand, they make $57 billion a year off of tourism, which means that for their economy size, about 12% of their economic GDP annually is off of tourism. So that is actually near to being close to actually an economic monolith of a sort in the tourism industry. Cambodia only makes $4 billion off of tourism, but that's still about 10% of their GDP. So that's actually quite large for them. But look at this, man. Hong Kong makes $33 billion off of international tourism, and the whole of China only makes $33 billion off of international tourism.
It's kind of low.
Yeah, that's actually kind of wild right there. Hong Kong makes as much in tourism annually as the whole of China does. That's actually pretty shocking. Russia makes...
They'd make more if they weren't communists.
That's true. But Russia only makes $9 billion off of international tourism. That is actually on par with the Czech Republic almost, which makes $7 billion a year off of tourism. But as you can see, America is a power player when it comes to international tourism. But Thailand also is a very big player, at least for their respective area.
A lot of people want to go to Thailand. That's wild. A lot of passport people.
Yeah, a lot of passport bros. I wonder why. You see.
Why are they going?
I don't know. Why do you want to know? Like, why do you want to know? You're putting me on the spot here. I'm just playing. They're going there for the they're going there for the company. You know, we're just gonna put it that way, so that way it's PG. But look at that. Actually, we found it, man. Look, we found it. The number of tourists in millions, at least for the year of 2016. And you can see that France is actually number one with 83 million international tourists, which I think is actually larger than their population is, and that's the amount of tourists that they get annually. So quite a lot. The U.S. comes in second, at least in 2016, with 76 million tourists in 1 year in 2016. So actually quite significant. But anyways, we will move on from that because, folks, it is time for us to move on to our last Super Chat of the night. So what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
So this one goes to Carol Wanner, who puts in a 5 and said, "My son is in the U.S. Army Infantry and is being deployed to Poland soon. And should I be worried? And does Poland have a strong military?" He'll be super safe in Poland, by the way. Poland is one of the powerhouses of Europe, one of the most formidable forces in Europe, and they are well equipped to handle anything. And that's probably one of the safest places you could be over there. But Enforcer, what say you?
If he's being deployed to Poland, he's most likely being deployed as a part of either the supporting units for the brigade that we have in Poland, or he's actually one of the soldiers in one of the fighting units for that brigade in Poland. They rotate out the specific battalions that are a part of that brigade, but he's actually going to be quite safe. As far as it being close to a shock point if war did break out, it is right on the Suwalki Gap. But generally, Poland is an incredibly strong military. It's one of the strongest in Europe right now. And also the U.S. position in Europe is, at least according to General Donahue, quite stable around the Kaliningrad and Suwalki Gap area. So not really much of a threat would be posed. And of course, the U.S. military takes great care and concern, especially in the modern day, for the safety of the service members. Even in the outbreak of war, we mitigate casualties as much as we can. So as far as safety is concerned, for, of course, the occupation he's in, which is the occupation of war, he's about as safe as you can get, really. So he's actually in quite a good spot, and I wouldn't worry about it all too much. But with that, I thank you so much for the support and help with this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to David Croton, who puts in a 5 once again. He said, "Take one from the chat. Love you too." And thank you for that, by the way.
Hey, and thank you massively for that, David. And we will make sure to take one from the chat in your honor. And thank you for the high praise and the words of affection. We thank you greatly because we love the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, you're actually going to be guiding us into the live chat segment. So before we get your live chat, Matthew, what do we got for the Morse code decoders of the stream?
And the Morse code decoders were Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Johnny Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabelle Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness. They said the Morse says, "Now there's an armed uprising in Iran." Wow. An armed conflict in half the time. Wow.
And ding, that's the sound of money. Y'all got that down on the nail. That was the jackpot of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that correct. The Morse code decoders of the stream. The Lee Spring Armor Sentinel Corps. You got it correct on the 1,249 day of the war. I thank y'all greatly, because we wouldn't have known how in the world y'all got that right. How did I get that right? Are you okay? Are you all right, Jack? Whatever. But anyways, beyond that.
What are you on, cocaine or something?
But man, I gotta thank you massively to each and every one of y'all on the Lee Spring Armor Signal Corps for getting that correct, because y'all get that correct time and time again. And so with that, we are moving into the live chat segment. We are going to grab a live chat in honor of David Crouton's $5 super chat. And after that live chat, we are going to be getting 3 more live chats and then rounding out tonight's stream. So with that, what do we got, Matthew, as a live chat in honor of David Crouton?
And this one goes to Plant Lord, who said, "Did you guys hear that Russia is refitting their nuclear battle cruiser Admiral Nakimov with Zircon hypersonic missile systems?"
The Admiral Nakimov is a Kirov-class battlecruiser. These are the largest ships that were ever made in the Cold War, at least in terms of non-aircraft carrier class types. As far as that goes, I would say I wouldn't be too concerned, because this thing is, in the modern sense, a target that is so large it'd be impossible to miss. So I generally would say I wouldn't be too worried about it. And also, I think the Zircon has a lot of hype behind it, because the Russians did fire a Zircon into Ukraine, and one of them was actually shot down by the Patriots. So it isn't that much of a threat. I think that it won't be too much to be handled. Also, by the way, this thing has been laid up for a couple of decades. So refitting this thing and putting this thing in the service, if we're going off of the Kuznetsov, that's probably going to take like 8 years. So you may as well have just built a new ship at that point with the amount of time it'll take. So I hope I did address that the best I can, and thank you once again, David Crowden, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we have one last super chat to get to, and then we're getting into the 3 last questions of the night. So what do we got, Matthew?
And this one goes to LC39A once again, who is throwing in literally, I think, their 4th super chat of the night, a massive 106 Canadian. That is huge support tonight. And thank you very much, LC39A, for that very generous support. By far the most generous, and we appreciate that. He said, "I infected with a money virus." Oh dear. He said, "Good night, boys." And good night to you too. Honestly, what is the cure for such a virus? I tell you, that sounds like it could be an epidemic. But Enforcer, what say you?
I've got to tell you, I got 20 chandeliers. But beyond that, I got to thank you for the support.
No. Being a preacher is not the solution. I tell you.
I didn't say that, and don't you dare ever say I said that. But beyond that, I gotta thank you massively for the support, LC39A. Thank you so much for the massive support, and thank you for enjoying this channel enough that you want to support it like that. And I do thank you incredibly once again. I hope you have a great night, sleep well, and we will, of course, see you tomorrow for the Sunday night fundraiser. But still, a massive thanks to you so much once again. You've massively supported the channel tonight. We cannot thank you enough, because each and every person, no matter if it's $1 or hundreds of dollars, are all chipping in to help make this channel possible. And if it wasn't for each and every one of y'all, we would have never been able to make this thing possible for years, much less night by night. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and a good night to you. And with that, you're actually going to be segueing us into the final 3 questions of the night, and then we're going to be rounding this thing on out. And so we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and that viewer is going to be none other than Pixel Lord. And they said, any news on the Caucasus? I heard something about the leader of Chechnya being hospitalized, and could be something going on there. Now, y'all know
almost
what?
Drowned.
Yeah, Ramsam almost drowned. He got overhydrated in the ocean, got a little too much water, it sounds like.
Yeah, he almost died at a beach in Turkey, and they had to grab him because he almost drowned. So that's why he's in the hospital. But beyond that, we haven't really heard a lot about the internal situation in the Caucasus Mountain region, beyond the fact that dumbass almost drowned himself at a beach in Turkey. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Big thanks to you once again for asking a good question. And also, before we get on to the second to last question of the night, got to give a huge thanks to Sully Canuck, who threw in a 20 and said, another great show, lads. And hey, thank you to our Royal Canadian Navy veteran from London, Ontario, for appreciating the show tonight and supporting it and helping it keep on running. It means a lot to us that folks like you enjoy it. And not only that, I got to thank you massively for the support, because your support is helping us to keep another great show running tonight and hopefully tomorrow. So a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and that question is going to go to none other than Jeff Alley, who said, who was the last president with a good foreign policy?
Well, not speaking about him on a partisan level, but more so of a you know what, I'll cover it from Kennedy, and we'll just move from there. Kennedy had good foreign policy. Lyndon B. Johnson had decent foreign policy. He kind of got screwed by his advisors, but beyond that, he had good foreign policy. Nixon had good foreign policy. Ford had okay foreign policy. Carter didn't really, but you know, he was a nice guy, so he gets a pass, but he didn't really have good foreign policy. Reagan was okay. Like if you skip over the whole Iran-Contra thing, which you really can't, he had decent foreign policy, but the Iran-Contra thing kind of muddled it up a little bit, so it was pretty okay. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was okay. He generally had all of the basic blocks there that mattered, so it's good. And then after that would have been Clinton. Clinton had actually pretty decent foreign policy. I think what he did down in the Balkans was pretty decent. He also came to the defense of Taiwan when the Chinese started to get aggressive in the late 90s. That was a good thing. So generally, I'd say Clinton was also decent. Bush, look, no matter what people say about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, I think Bush's foreign policy position was in the right place. We did invade Iraq off of the intelligence sources saying that they were developing weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He can't personally go to Iraq and find that. So I personally think that his foreign policy decisions were decently sound, although I also think that the lack of political ambition for an occupation of Iraq was a shortcoming that bit us in the ass for the rest of the couple of decades. So I would say it was decent. It was okay. I would say that from there, that's really where the at least decent foreign policy ended, and from there it kind of became a little bit muddled. Like I would say that there are some good things. I would actually say it's a little bit up in the air to me, and of course I don't want this to become political, but as far as foreign policy, and that's it, it's up in the air to me as to whether Obama did good or not, because there were things that he did that I think were pertinent. Like, for example, the island defense chain around China. That was something that was started during his administration, which I think was a really smart idea. But I also think that with, once again, how the Middle East was handled, or at least Afghanistan was handled, there were some shortcomings there, because it was more so of a maintenance and upkeep and more so of a cultivation sort of a thing on a foreign policy point, and it wasn't really done incredibly well. It wasn't done terribly, but it wasn't done incredibly well, and that sort of a weakness in Afghanistan would come back to bite us later. So it was kind of a mix, and also Obama really wasn't there for Ukraine either when they first got Crimea annexed. We sanctioned the Russians, but we didn't really provide any major support for the Ukrainians through his administration. So it's kind of like it's kind of up in the air with Obama. I'd say that the last person though that had decent foreign policy probably would have been Bush. All things considered, if you're looking at it as he was making decisions with no hindsight, I would say that generally would probably be the last time that you could say undoubtedly there was some decent foreign policy. Or if you wanted to even take a safer bet, I would say the last one would have been Clinton. But it's somewhere down the middle of the road to me, in between Clinton and Bush. Obama's kind of up in the air once you balance everything equally. There's enough good and bad things that it kind of balances out to be neutral. So you can't really say it was great or good. It was just more so it is what it is. But beyond that, I would say that the foreign policy has drastically started to reduce downhill. So take your pick, either Clinton or Bush. And I would say that generally either one of those had the last decent bits of foreign policy. Although I'd also say that there was some left to be lacking with Bush. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are on to the final question of the night. So who is the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is JL, who said, do you guys know why Laos is shaped so strangely?
I actually do not know why Laos is shaped so strangely. I do know that Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam are all byproducts of the collapse of French Indochina, but as to the reason why Laos's borders are shaped as they are, I think it's more so geographical parameters. Their eastern border is on a mountain range, and then their eastern border largely follows the Mekong River. Yeah, it actually does. So I think that's generally why their border is shaped this way, but beyond that, I wouldn't really be able to give you incredibly good answers to that. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream, folks. I got to thank you all so much once again for the support and also enjoying this channel tonight. We had a peak viewership tonight of a whopping 12.8 thousand people, and we also had an overall viewership of 130,000. We're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to each and every one of y'all for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to have y'all here every day with us, joining us as we cover this news, and of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world, and also the Sunday night fundraiser. So, a massive thanks to you all so much once again for watching, and we will see you all then. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, long live the Republic, and long live the Lee Spring Army.
And with that, folks, thank you all once again for joining us on the stream tonight on a day such and such of the war, as I've forgotten the day. But anyways, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern on our next nightly war news stream. And the Enforcer will see you all midday tomorrow if there is enough news for a short war video. And a big shout out to all 130,000 people that joined us by the end of the stream. And we will see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Hiram Slava, get some rest, and good night.